moisture, an atmospheric river that's going to be help enhance this system. Right now, though, here's the rainfall up to our north, approaching Del Norte County, as you can see here up in Northern California. Back edge of the sky, though, this will be approaching our coastline late tonight into early tomorrow morning. Here's our live camera looking out toward the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. The clouds already in place. And current numbers, Santa Rosa 63, Concord is 64, and San Jose checking in 67 degrees. So here's the timing. We'll break down the timing with this incoming system. This is 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, and this could be some heavy rain in portions of the North Bay, making its approach to San Francisco. Once again, during this time, it's going to be the peak of the wind with those high wind warnings and wind advisories in place. This is 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. It approaches the South Bay. And notice it's not an all-day persistent rain event. Also notice this will head out toward the Sierra, but snow levels are pretty high, up above 8,000 feet or so. But throughout the day on Wednesday, we'll have some clouds, some breaks in the clouds, and a few pop-up showers, and also the chance of some thunderstorms throughout your Wednesday. So this is 3 o'clock. And then as we head toward the weekend, it looks like things kind of get pretty quiet out there, with maybe just a few clouds paying us a visit over the next several days. We'll have more on that with your full update in just a few minutes.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Well, coming up, 5 years after an 88-year-old woman known as Grandma Wong was brutally beaten in a San Francisco park, the suspect in her case is found guilty of murder. A live report on that verdict and reaction. New at 5, the man accused of fatally beating an 88-year-old woman known as Grandma Wong in San Francisco back in 2019 has now been found guilty. KTVU's Christian Captain joins us live from San Francisco's criminal court. And Christian, that suspect was found guilty of murder and nearly 24 other crimes against people of Asian ancestry.
Yeah, exactly right. That defendant pleading not guilty, denying responsibility for more than a half-dozen instances, including the murder of Grandma Wong. The vicious attack in January 2019 in Visitation Valley on 88-year-old Yik Oi Huang, known affectionately as Grandma Huang, sent shockwaves through San Francisco. Grandma Huang died from her injuries about a year after the attack. Police arrested Keontae Gathron, now 25 years old, and said he was responsible for a spree of attacks on teens and elderly people of Asian ancestry. Gathron denied the allegations and wound up representing himself in court, and now a jury has found him guilty of murder and numerous other charges.
We also tied Mr. Gathron to a number of incidents involving carjackings and robberies that happened in the weeks leading up to Ms. Wang's murder and also the weeks following, including armed robberies. And so, yes, the jury has come back finding him guilty of multiple incidents.
While the victims are all of Asian ancestry, prosecutors argued the motive was financial gain. Grandma Huang's family said the guilty verdict brings some closure. What they hope is that it will help some people feel safe in their communities.
The message, I think, we hope that this case, my grandma's case, will bring the message to the community. I hope that this case closure will bring out a good message to the community and all the people, the local community or the local family here to bring up a safer environment that we showed up as Asians and as other minorities as well.
Advocates for Asian American justice hope that the case shows that the city is taking seriously the idea of accountability.
To me, the guilty verdict it's a moment of truth. It's long overdue, and it validates what our community has been fighting for.
And Gathron is set to appear in court later this month for sentencing. He faces life in prison. We're live in San Francisco. Christian Cafton, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
It is Election Day, and we should know very soon if voters will pass Prop 50. But no doubt it's been an expensive election that's getting attention from across the nation. Next, a deeper look at how we got here. It is Election Day in California, and for many voters, there is only one issue on their ballots, the state's partisan redistricting measure. Voters are weighing in on Governor Newsom's Proposition 50. which asks to redraw the state's congressional lines to benefit Democrats. Our political reporter Greg Lee has been following this effort since it began this last summer and joins us now live in studio.
Yeah, Claudine, we continue to see strong turnout not only here in the Bay Area but across the state, particularly for an off-year election. Democrats here and across the nation are looking at tonight as a referendum on President Trump. Here's a look at how we got here. California voters will decide whether the state will redraw its congressional lines in a national political tug-of-war ahead of the 2026 midterm election. Governor Newsom's Proposition 50 aims to help Democrats win control of the House in a direct challenge to President Trump's agenda.
I think we get 5, and there could be some other states. We're going to get another 3 or 4 or 5 in addition. Texas would be the biggest one, and that'll be 5.
Over the summer, Texas Governor Greg Abbott acted on pressure from the president for red states to redraw their districts to help Republicans in the midterms. A new Texas map would give Republicans a shot at 5 more House seats.
I'm not going to sit back any longer in a position, the fetal position, in a position of weakness, when in fact California could demonstrably advance strength.
In response, Governor Newsom began floating the idea of a ballot measure to take the extraordinarily rare step of redrawing California's congressional map in the middle of the decade. At the same time, Governor Abbott called a special session for the redistricting push, but Texas Democrats delayed the process by leaving for blue states.
We have the authority legally under redistricting law to draw districts that align with the voter preferences of the voters of the state of Texas. And Donald Trump proved in these Hispanic-created districts that Hispanics, as well as other people in those districts, they want to vote Republican.
There's others that are saying and warning us that they're going to arrest us or make us pay fines. I'll pay that price for America.
Texas Democrats also came to Sacramento as California lawmakers began to push to draw a new map and get it in front of voters quickly for approval. The proposed partisan map would be a direct counter to Texas, helping Democrats win 5 more seats in California. They currently hold 43.
We proudly stand with Californians in this moment that when faced with Texas's steel, they have met it head on with courage and with a sense of urgency to protect the entire nation.
If approved, Prop 50 would authorize a constitutional amendment that puts the Independent Commission's map on hold temporarily through 2030. Support lined up behind the plan, including from California congressional Democrats, national figures, and major labor unions.
SEIU members are ready to fight. SEIU members across the board, black, brown, Asian, white, we are worried about our democracy.
Opposition also quickly coalesced, including state and national Republicans and mega donor Charles Munger Jr. Former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger did not formally join the No campaign, but spoke strongly against the measure.
They are trying to fight for democracy by getting rid of the democratic principles of California. That started way back with Hiram Johnson. So it is insane to let that happen.
For someone who keeps talking about democracy, he undermines it at every step. Gavin Newsom has no problem taking away people's voices.
The ballot measure cleared the state legislature's Democratic supermajority in a few lawsuits to qualify for the special election, setting off an expensive and heated fight to reach voters before November 4th.
The first state in U.S. history to, in the most democratic way, submit to the people of our state the ability to determine their own maps.
As we've reported, this redistricting effort has now spread beyond Texas and California to states like Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, and Indiana for Republicans, and Virginia and New York for Democrats. So tonight, and what voters decide is kind of the opening salvo in whatever this looks like for the next few months before the midterms there, Claudine.
Yes, it's been a very fast run from when this started to where we are now.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Greg. All right, we've been talking about the governor's race in Virginia and that it's already been called for Abigail Spanberger. She has won the Virginia governor's race. She is just walking up to the podium in a very crowded room there, again, as she has now been elected as the next governor of Virginia. Let's listen in. All right, as we wait for her to take the podium, Again, this race and the New Jersey race considered bellwethers as people test the temperament of the electorate. These two races, as they really want to see where people are in terms of Trump's first year in his second presidency. Again, let's listen in.
Thank you all so much. My fellow Virginians, tonight we sent a message. We sent a message to every corner of the Commonwealth, a message to our neighbors and our fellow Americans across the country. We sent a message to the whole world that in 2025, Virginia chose pragmatism over partisanship. We chose our Commonwealth over chaos. You all chose leadership that will focus relentlessly on what matters most: lowering costs, keeping our communities safe, and strengthening our economy for every Virginian. Leadership that will focus on problem solving, not stoking division. We chose leadership that will always put Virginia first. And Virginia, I cannot wait to get to work for you. Tonight we turned a page. We turned that page by listening to our neighbors, focusing on practical results, laying out a clear agenda, and leading with decency and determination.
All right, you've been listening to Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger. The race in Virginia has been called for the governor's race, defeating Republican candidate Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears, congratulating her crowd, talking about pragmatism over partisanship. We are continuing to watching several races across the country, and that includes the New York City mayor's race. That's where there's three candidates and three different visions. That race has garnered some national attention. Polls there closing in just about 20 minutes. Up next, a political expert breaks down the impact of that race. As we continue our coverage of Election Day, we want to turn our focus to a closely watched race that could have national impacts. And we're talking about the race for New York City mayor. The polls are closing in just under 20 minutes. And Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani is the frontrunner in that highly contested race. He's up against former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who's running as an independent, and Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa, founder of the unarmed patrol group, the Guardian Angels. Now, in a Truth Social post that included his endorsement of Cuomo, President Trump called Zohran Mamdani a communist, prompting criticism from his opponents.
Andrew Cuomo needs to go back, hide under his rock out in the Hamptons with his billionaire friends, who have left really a stench over the city of New York.
If they want to vote for a candidate endorsed by Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Stephen Miller, by all means, they should vote for Andrew Cuomo.
This is going to determine the future of the city of New York. It may also determine the future of the Democratic Party.
Now, if Mamdani wins, he would be the city's first Muslim American mayor, plus the city's youngest mayor in generations. Now, the president has also threatened to withhold federal funds from New York City if Mamdani wins. Now, according to the city's Board of Elections, voting turnout has hit a 30-year high for a mayoral election. And joining us now for more insight on this race is Associate Professor of Political Science at University at Buffalo, Jacob Nyhausel. Thanks for joining us. So,
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Polls close in just about 17 minutes here. We know this voter turnout is high, record for a mayoral race. So people are certainly engaged. We're getting, results in for Virginia. Democrats hoping for, an election that sends a message. So when voter turnout's high in New York City, who does that bode well for?
I think there's very little doubt that bodes well for Mamdani right now. You would expect to see lots of energy among younger voters, and that's what we're seeing in the early vote, is that after an initial surge of kind of the over 55 crowd, younger voters really came out in the early vote. And so I think basically all signs point to Mamdani being heavily advantaged right now.
And what does the message mean in this race? I mean, certainly it feels like there's an establishment, there's a new generation message, there's an economy message in there. But as the Democratic Party tries to figure out who it needs to be in order to change the momentum back into their favor, this is a race that a lot of people are saying they should pay attention to, especially if Mamdani wins.
I think that's right at some level. We've seen this in the past, actually repeatedly, where parties after a loss, particularly after maybe a surprising loss, will double down on what they see as their core principles. And in this case, they seem to be tacking a little bit to the left, trying to tap into the energy of the party. And so you oftentimes will see that out of a losing party is, you're going to be even more of what you think you're supposed to be. And similarly, we often see instances where parties will, voters will leapfrog each other. They'll go back and forth. And so if they're a little bit tired of Trump right now, they're going to run pretty far in the other direction. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing right now.
If you were teaching this election, in this New York City mayor's election, there's a lot of twists and turns. I mean, certainly the primary surprised a lot of people. That was ranked choice voting. The general election is not. And then you had, the Sliwa influence, the calls for him to drop out, how that would have changed things. Where do you think the influential point was in this space?
I mean, I really think that after the primary, all of it was kind of posturing. Nothing that happened after that point was fundamentally going to change the direction of this race. Whether it was Adams dropping out and endorsing Cuomo more or less, whether it was Trump recently coming in on Cuomo's side, or even the money that came in support of Cuomo. I think after the primary, this one was pretty much sealed up.
And so what is the takeaway then? I mean, what do you think the outcome of this race is? I mean, certainly there's 14 now minutes to go. And when that clock strikes and the polls close and the first numbers come in, what are you expecting and what do you think the big takeaway really is?
I mean, I think I'm expecting as soon as the big dump of early vote gets in, New York tends to drop the early vote very early on in the night. and we'll continue counting after that. There are certain key places I'll be looking at in the city, but I expect that early vote to heavily favor Mamdani, and I don't expect anybody to really be able to overcome that advantage initially. So I think that's how this night is going to fold out. Could be surprised; it's happened before, but I think that that's roughly how it's going to unfold, and I think that it is a message. And I think that in some areas of the country, places like Virginia, New Jersey, and especially New York, people are energized against Trump, and this is their way to showcase that.
And there was hesitancy in the leadership of the Democratic Party, certainly in endorsements and things like that. Do you think we'll see that change?
I think so, yes. This seems to be where the energy in the party is, folks like Mamdani, and I think you'll see more and more of the party establishment. We've already seen a little bit of it with the governor of New York, who is much more, centrist/establishment, coming out in favor of Mamdani, and I think that other key Democrats will do the same thing in days to come.
Well, certainly they like to say never a dull moment, and that is certainly what we are watching here. All right, Jacob Neiheisel, we really appreciate your insight and your time tonight as we wait for that first big dump, as you said, of numbers to come in. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us. We will be right back after this. A Norwegian tall ship is docked in San Francisco. It's on an around-the-world voyage to promote ocean science and climate education. That 107-year-old ship is circumnavigating the globe as part of the United Nations-supported One Ocean expedition. Mayor Daniel Lurie and students from San Francisco's Drew School were on board earlier today, and the students presented the ship's crew with climate-focused messages in a bottle. The letters and creative work will now travel aboard the ship to Norway.
Well, fairly nice Tuesday out there. A good chance to get outside and vote with partly cloudy skies, even mostly sunny skies at times. The conditions will be changing later on tonight into tomorrow morning. So rainfall expectations for us here in the Bay Area as this front comes on board. A big range out there. Some areas not a big deal, maybe 0.2 of an inch all the way to maybe over 2 inches. That would be for the North Bay coastal hills. And the winds, it's kind of the developing theme, at least for today with this storm. The wind's expected to really ramp up. So that's kind of the setup for tomorrow. It's not only the rainfall, but the winds. We're really watching the timing for the Wednesday morning commute. We have wind advisories and high wind warnings for the Bay Area beginning tonight, 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Now, the rainfall expectations, as you can see, it's not a major system for the South Bay. Those amounts, we've really tapered off on those amounts. Central portions of the bay, maybe a half an inch. And then up in the North Bay, you can see up towards Santa Rosa, maybe over an inch of rainfall in the coastal hills. They tend to get the bulk of the rainfall, and that will be happening within a short amount of time, early, basically late tonight into early tomorrow morning. So here's the satellite and the radar. It's a nice system out here in the Pacific. That's the cloud cover, that speckled cloud cover, a good sign of cooler air tucked in behind the front. Right now, the rainfall is targeting extreme northern California, moving up into southern Oregon. As we back out the view here, this band here, this front will work with all this moisture, and that will set up the rainy forecast just in time for the Wednesday morning commute. Current numbers out there right now: Santa Rosa 63, Concord 64, and San Jose reporting partly cloudy skies in the upper 60s. Rainfall will pick up first thing tomorrow morning, especially up in the northern half of the Bay Area, and you can see overnight temperatures back down into the 50s. Now here's the forecast model. It does pick up on the overall trend, though. You can see those winds increasing out of the south. So this is 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're out toward the coast or driving the Bay Area bridges first thing tomorrow morning. That's a defined strong wind first thing tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. And then later in the day, we will scale back on the wind speeds throughout the afternoon hours on your Wednesday. We have a coastal flood advisory in place due to the tides, the king tides in place. So with the rainfall, in addition to the high tide, that could lead to some inflated water levels over the next several days. As you can see here, the peak will be Thursday morning. So here's the next storm, as you can pick out in the Pacific. That front moves in, and that'll be the source of that rainfall just in time for the Wednesday morning commute, and some stronger winds, at least over 40, over 50 miles an hour. So here's that band coming on board. This is 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. This is 11 o'clock. So we'll have some more breaks in the action, but still the possibility of some pop-up showers. And throughout the day, still the possibility of a thunderstorm, about a 10 to 15% chance. And then on Thursday, probably just a sun-cloud mix. So rain and wind, especially for the morning commute, tapering off to scattered showers later in the day. And here's a look ahead, your 5-day forecast. There's a slight chance of a shower on your Thursday. Friday, partly sunny skies. The weekend is looking okay with a mixture of sun and clouds. So let's keep an eye on maybe the chance of a few North Bay showers. But for the most part right now, we'll just hold on to some clouds for your weekend outlook.
Well, on this election day, there's a lot we're watching, not only here in the Bay Area, but across the country. Here in California, those polls will close in just over 2 hours. Voters getting the final say on Proposition 50. That is the temporary redistricting that will redraw lines to favor Democrats. There are also 2 governor's races that we've been watching. In New Jersey, the polls closed just about an hour ago, and those numbers are just coming in. There they are on your screen. The latest numbers showing that Democrat Mikey Sherrill is leading Republican Jack Ciattarelli 59% to 40%. Those numbers still being counted. Now the polls in Virginia, those closed at 4 p.m. our time, and that race has already been called for Democrat Abigail Spanberger. The 3-term congresswoman and former CIA agent becomes the first female governor. Now she spoke to a crowd of supporters a short time ago and thanked them for choosing pragmatism over partisanship and the Commonwealth over chaos. And in New York City, the polls are about to close in the race for mayor, so we'll be watching those results very carefully. We'll be following all those developments throughout the night here on KTVU and online, and of course on our Fox local app. Thanks for watching. The KTVU News at 6 is next.
Next at 6 o'clock, federal charges are filed against the driver of a U-Haul who reversed the truck toward law enforcement officers. And a jury delivers a guilty verdict for the man tried in the fatal attack of an 88-year-old woman in San Francisco. Plus, more conflicting messages from Washington on when and if SNAP funding will resume for the millions of Americans going without food assistance.
This is KTVU Fox 2 News at 6.
So far, we're happy to have a smooth election. It seems like voters are turning out for this one. It seems like there's a lot of voter interest.
And it is Election Day. Voters are heading to the polls in California and around the country, with results already coming in on some big races nationwide. Good evening on this Tuesday. I'm Christina Rendon. Voters here in the Bay Area and across the country went to the polls today for Election Day 2025. On the East Coast, we are keeping a close eye on the New York City mayoral race, where polls have just closed. Results are also coming in on the gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey. And of course, we are watching Proposition 50 here in California. We're starting things off with KTVU's Mark Sayer. He's been keeping a close eye on things at the Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters and joins us live. Mark, how's the turnout?
Well, Christina, elections officials here in Santa Clara County believe that the turnout may actually reach midterm congressional election status. That is like 2 years before and 2 years after a presidential election. They say those figures are quite remarkable for what is a special election. There has been a steady stream of voters all day long at the Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters office. Some are coming in to get ballots, others just to drop them off, and still others to personally feed their ballots into electronic vote counting machines. Voter Jerry Cederholm says he is skeptical of returning his ballot by mail. Why come do it in person?
Because the fewer people touching my ballot, the better. If you put it in the mail, there's too many people fooling with it.
Elections officials are busy in the back room opening thousands of ballots which have either arrived by mail or were deposited in drop boxes. The county also has 38 vote centers where the votes are electronically tallied. Registrar of Voters Matt Morello says the official drop boxes have become a very popular option.
I think they really strike that balance between convenience and security, because voters know when they put it in a drop box, it's coming directly to us.
Around the Bay Area, the largest counties are all reporting a full 1/3 or more of votes have already been cast and counted, with Contra Costa and San Mateo counties leading the pack with 37%. Alameda, San Francisco, and Santa Clara counties are all close behind.
So far, we're happy to have a smooth election. It seems like voters are turning out for this one. It seems like there's a lot of voter interest. We're looking at possibly 50 to 60% overall turnout.
Voter Ernesto Valdiva voted in person for a very practical reason. He accidentally ripped his ballot when opening the mail.
It's very important. I think everyone should have to vote, especially if they have the right to vote. It's something impersonal, because we make a difference on voting.
And for Francisco Garcia, who became a U.S. citizen 25 years ago, he never misses an opportunity to vote and even took this selfie as he dropped off his ballot.
Even now, 25 years later, you're still proud to be able to vote?
Absolutely.
After
Absolutely.
25 years?
Yes.
Now, polls here in California, of course, do not close until 8 o'clock, but elections officials here point out that if you choose to vote by mail, that ballot does need to be postmarked by today, so it's likely it's already too late to vote by mail. Your best bet in your county is to go to a precinct, or if your county has a vote center, to go to a vote center and get that vote in before 8 o'clock tonight. Reporting live from the Santa Clara County Election Center in San Jose, I'm Mark Sayer, KTVU, Fox 2 News. Christina?
All right, Mark Sayer live for us in the South Bay. Mark, thank you. For many voters, there is only one issue on their ballots, the state's partisan redistricting measure. Voters are weighing in on Governor Newsom's Proposition 50, which asks to redraw the state's congressional lines to benefit Democrats in response to similar efforts in Texas. And it has become a clash between Governor Newsom and President Trump in the first major election of Trump's second term. Our political reporter Greg Lee is here with the implications.
Yeah, Christina, no question there are national implications for Prop 50, particularly ahead of a crucial 2026 midterm election. If approved, the balance of power of the House could run through California. At the same time, the president and governor escalated their feud on social media today. Without evidence, the White House press secretary and the president alleged voter fraud in California's special election. The president posted here on Truth Social, the unconstitutional redistricting vote in California is a giant scam, and that the entire process, in particular the voting itself, is rigged. All mail-in ballots, where the Republicans in the state are shut out, is under very serious legal and criminal review. Stay tuned. State leaders, including the Secretary of State, which administers the election, slammed the president's claims, calling them baseless. Here's how the governor responded.
He suggests that the election has already been rigged. Sounds familiar. When we kicked off the campaign for Proposition 50, he sent out Border Patrol with masks to intimidate our kickoff rally. He does not believe in fair and free elections. What more evidence do we need of the importance of Proposition 50?
Now, the U.S. Department of Justice has sent election monitors to parts of the state today for the election. The state's Attorney General Rob Bonta responded by sending the state's own observers to monitor the monitors. Governor Newsom and supporters of Prop 50 here and around the country have framed this race as a referendum on President Trump in this second term. The results obviously being closely watched, not just in California, but all across the nation, Christina, as this redistricting battle heats up everywhere.
And how impactful is this for Governor Newsom himself as he looks ahead potentially to the White House?
Yeah, he's been in front of this, right? He has been the face of Prop 50. He's been the architect of Prop 50, and he's certainly been a thorn in the president's side as he sort of framed himself as the instigator-in-chief against the president. He has raised a ton of money in a short amount of time for Prop 50, and as he looks ahead to these potential aspirations for the White House, if he does well tonight and can move forward, then he can say that his national profile continues to raise. But above all, he's also realizing he has a long list of donors now that he can tap if he indeed does make that run for the White House.
Yeah, very big, important night for him for future political aspirations. Greg, thank you. Well, one of the closely watched races back east is the Virginia governor's race. That was called about an hour ago for Democratic candidate Abigail Spanberger. She becomes the first female governor in Virginia and gives Democrats a key victory heading into the 2026 midterm elections. We'll have more election coverage coming up at 6:30, including the latest On the New York City mayor's race, of course, if those results come in sooner, we'll bring it to you then, as well as the other national races, along with an announcement by Senator Alex Padilla and his future political plans. Well, now to new developments in the case of shots fired outside Coast Guard Island after the driver of a U-Haul reversed toward officers during an immigration protest less than 2 weeks ago. Tonight, we're learning the driver is facing federal assault charges. We get the latest from crime reporter Henry Lee, who is live outside Coast Guard Island. Henry.
Christina, this is where the shooting happened, near Coast Guard Island in between Oakland and Alameda, and because it was Coast Guard officers who opened fire on what they say was a threat. This driver now faces federal charges. KTVU cameras were rolling when the driver of this U-Haul sped up toward a row of armed Coast Guard security forces, prompting the officers to repeatedly yell at the driver to stop before they opened fire. Now, the accused driver, 26-year-old Brendan Monroe Thompson, has been charged in federal court with assaulting federal officers with a deadly or dangerous weapon. The defendants, also known as Bella Thompson and Bella Castillo. Authorities say the driver suffered a gunshot wound to the back and abandoned the 10-foot U-Haul nearby. Authorities say this photo shows the driver wearing a baseball cap, face mask, and distinct multicolored pants before the shooting. Those same pants were recovered from the suspect at the hospital. Authorities say the Coast Guard officers had no choice to fire because of the threat posed by the driver and the truck.
We don't know. Does he have other people in the van that are armed? Is the arm loaded with dynamite and explosives? They don't know what is approaching them.
After the shooting, the suspect was taken in for a mental health evaluation. KTVU legal analyst Michael Cardoza says any mental health concerns would likely not matter until sentencing.
The fact that you simply did it makes it a general intent crime. That will come into play at sentencing. What effect, if any, the diminished capacity had on the decision.
The shooting happened as protesters had gathered at Denison and Embarcadero in Oakland near the Coast Guard Island entrance to protest President Trump's threat to send federal agents to the Bay Area. The president backed off, but the protesters stayed for days, squaring off with Coast Guard officers blocking the bridge leading to the island. Now, a bystander was also hit by Coast Guard gunfire. That man was hit in the stomach. This defendant returns to federal court next week. Live in Oakland, Henry Lee, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
All right, Henry, thank you for that report. The man accused of sexually assaulting a child at the Polo Fields in Golden Gate Park made his first court appearance today. District Attorney Brooke Jenkins says Dominic Valle Buitrago is charged with multiple felonies, including forcible lewd acts upon a child and kidnapping. The 19-year-old was tracked down with the use of DNA evidence and arrested last week in Pleasant Hill. The attack happened October 23rd in a public bathroom while the victim was at a soccer practice at the Polo Field. The suspect's grandmother was in the courtroom today. She says he has mental health issues.
We're dealing with a child that was not in his right mind. This child has schizophrenia. He has mental developmental delay, some mild autism, ADHD, depression, anxiety.
Valle Buitrago did not enter a plea. The arraignment was continued to tomorrow morning. If found guilty, he could face up to life in prison. The man who fatally beat an 88-year-old woman, affectionately known as Grandma Huang, in San Francisco back in 2019, has been found guilty of her murder. Huang died from her injuries about a year after the attack. San Francisco prosecutors say Keontae Gathron, now 25 years old, was responsible for a series of attacks on people of Asian ancestry, as well as carjackings and armed robberies. Grandma Huang's family said they hope this verdict will help people feel safer. Gathron is set to appear in court later this month for sentencing. He does face life in prison. Well, coming up, a cargo jet crashes right after takeoff and bursts into flames at Louisville Airport. We'll have the latest on casualties. And millions of SNAP recipients remain in limbo tonight. Still ahead, the confusing and conflicting messages on SNAP funding coming from the White House today.
And outside our doors this afternoon, the calm before the chaos. I'll have a look at the wet, windy system on the way coming up.
And here is a check of your evening commute tonight. Interstate 880 by the Oakland Coliseum. Traffic moving pretty smoothly during the evening commute. You're watching the KTVU News at 6. We'll be right back. The government shutdown is on day 35, making it the longest shutdown in U.S. history. And today there were conflicting messages from the White House over funding for the federal food assistance program. President Trump posted on social media that money would not be given out until the government reopens. Then his press secretary said later the administration would comply with 2 federal judges' orders and fund the food aid. KTVU's Jana Katsuyama has more on the impact the SNAP disruption is having on local food banks.
Extra volunteers at the Shiloh Food Pantry in Oakland were working hard, trying to keep shelves stocked and get groceries to people desperate for food as the government shutdown continues and CalFresh or SNAP food aid is still not flowing.
The line has been literally down the street every day. Yeah, it's a great need. We can hardly keep our refrigerator stocked. It's going out as fast as it comes in.
Outside in that line, we found Sarah, a mother and wife of a government employee who she says hasn't been paid in more than 1 month.
We are living like for savings, things we have, and try to make it work.
Sarah says her husband is an air traffic controller. They moved to Oakland last year. She learned of the food pantry through her daughter's school, and she says they have almost spent all of their savings just trying to stay afloat.
We have a mortgage, we have all the bills we have every month. He's been going to work every day, so with gas and everything. So, but we hope the government open again soon.
On Tuesday, President Trump said on social media he would not fund SNAP or food assistance programs until the government reopens. But later, the White House spokesperson said they are complying with the federal judge's orders to use contingency funds for the 1 in 8 Americans who receive food assistance. The average benefit is just $190 a month, and it could take days or even weeks before debit cards can be reloaded for November. On Tuesday, the Alameda County Community Food Bank opened new pop-up tents to help anyone in need of food.
This is day 1 at this location, and so far we've provided food to over 140 different families. We have pop-ups at 4 different Alameda County Social Services Agency locations.
Thank God for the food.
This Oakland resident, moved to tears, had only been eating 1 meal a day.
I lost my job and I was sick for a couple of months because I expired by me. And I can't work at the time.
They could just call 211 and they'll get connected with a representative that can kind of talk through their situation and help them figure out what support they might need.
In Oakland, Jana Katsuyama, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
A reminder, KTVU has compiled a list of resources with information on Bay Area food banks, free meals, and other kinds of support. You'll get there by scanning the QR code right here on your screen or heading to ktvu.fox/snap. We have new video of the moment a large UPS cargo plane crashed and exploded in Louisville, Kentucky tonight. You can see flames on the left wing of that plane as it's taking off moments before it crashes. At least 3 people are dead and 11 others are injured. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear says those numbers are expected to go up. This crash happened around 5:15 local time as that plane took off from Muhammad Ali International Airport on its way to Honolulu. The governor also says a business, Kentucky Petroleum Recycling, appeared to be, quote, hit pretty directly in this crash. An emergency shelter in place has been put in for a large surrounding area of the airport, and there's also a massive response, including police and fire. That airport, of course, is shut down right now. It is expected to resume operations tomorrow morning. We'll continue following this developing story and bring you any updates if we learn anything new. Flights at Reagan National Airport are landing and taking off again after a bomb threat caused a ground stoppage this morning. The threat was made against a United flight from Houston to D.C. According to the Secretary of Transportation, the flight landed safely around 9:30 Pacific time and passengers were evacuated. Law enforcement searched the plane and nothing was found. Operations then resumed at the airport shortly after the all clear was given. But airports across the country are struggling with flight delays as the government shutdown continues. A growing shortage of workers is contributing to this delay. In Phoenix, the FAA issued a ground stop this morning due to a controller shortage. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says there are enough controllers to handle the load nationwide right now. But he did warn for the potential of mass chaos next week when an estimated 13,000 air traffic controllers will miss their second paycheck.
If we thought that it was unsafe, we'll shut the whole airspace down. We won't let people travel.
Major airlines, aviation unions, and the travel industry have all been urging Congress to end this shutdown, which has now entered its 35th day. That's tied for the longest U.S. shutdown ever, which happened during the first Trump administration. A live look now for you. No major problems at San Francisco International Airport tonight. You're looking live right now at about 87 flights that were delayed today, with just one cancellation, according to FlightAware. There were 17 delays at Oakland International, and 19 flights were late in and out of San Jose Mineta.
If you have a flight tomorrow, there will be added risk of those delays due to the stormy weather that is coming to the Bay Area. A live look outside our doors after a beautiful fall day. We are transitioning to wet and windy weather for tonight into tomorrow. Let's take a look at some of the afternoon highs from today. Low 60s in San Francisco to low 70s inland. Start out with a little bit of patchy fog, partly cloudy skies, but a beautiful afternoon. And here's where we sit at this hour. 64 degrees right now in San Francisco. In the North Bay, 63 in Napa. Our winds are still generally light. A little bit of a breeze in Oakland at the airport there, 18 miles per hour. Fairfield reporting 16. And as we take a look at the cloud cover, we can see not a lot of moisture embedded within those clouds just yet. That will begin to change as we get into the overnight hours. Right now, most of this moisture still well to the north of us. So this system, again, expected to bring a good amount of rain, especially to the North Bay. The wind is definitely going to be an issue. Very strong gusts expected through the parts of the morning as well as the afternoon. And there is a wind advisory that begins at 10 o'clock for our Bay Area. I'll have better details on that coming up in just a moment. But briefly taking a look at the timeline during the overnight hours, it's really going to hit the North Bay first and then continue to shift during the morning commute. So you definitely want to give yourself some extra time. And of course, when you're on the roadways, be extra careful. A better look at the storm, how long we expect it to last, and what we can expect in the extended forecast coming up.
All right, Rosemary, we'll see you then. Thank you. Supervisor Jackie Fielder in San Francisco is calling for self-driving cars to be regulated after the death of a beloved bodega cat in the city's Mission District. The supervisor is introducing a resolution calling on the state legislature and the governor to give counties a say in whether autonomous vehicles like Waymo can operate. As it stands now, self-driving car companies are regulated by the DMV and the state PUC. Fielder spoke out at Randa's Market, where last week a Waymo car struck and killed Kit Kat, the tabby cat that belonged to the store's owner.
The future of autonomous vehicles should be decided by people, not tech oligarchs and their politicians.
Yes. You know, I'm not a politician. I don't know anything about legislation. I just hope and pray that these cars would be safer for animals and a human.
San Jose State Professor Ahmed Benafa tells KTVU a patchwork of regulations could drive self-driving car companies out of California. Waymo declined to comment on the proposed resolution. Coming up, a North Bay woman steps in to help her neighbors put food on the table as millions go without food assistance. Plus,
the nation remembers the life of former Vice President Dick Cheney. I'm Rebecca Castor with a look at his decades-long political career.
Family, friends, and former colleagues are remembering the life of Dick Cheney. The former vice president has died at the age of 84. Fox's Rebecca Castor has more from Washington.
Dick Cheney leaves behind a long and controversial political legacy here in Washington, where he's largely considered one of the most powerful vice presidents in history. Workers in Washington lowering flags to half-staff to honor the late Dick Cheney.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. Vice.
The 46th vice president passed away Monday at 84 years old. Now, friends and colleagues are remembering him as one of the most polarizing yet influential figures in American politics.
He played a key role in shaping policy on many of the most consequential issues of this day.
In a statement, former President George W. Bush calls his death a loss to the nation, saying, quote, "In our long discussions about the qualities a vice president should have, I realized that Dick Cheney was the one I needed." Cheney served under Bush for 8 years, playing a key role in the war on terror after the 9/11 attacks.
I think probably the most important thing we did was to keep the country safe for the last 7.5 years, to disrupt, interrupt, break up all the prospective attacks and plots that were developed to come launch another mass casualty attack inside the United States.
Cheney also held positions in Congress and led the Pentagon. He remained out of politics in recent years, but stood strongly by his daughter Liz Cheney, the former Republican congresswoman, as she clashed with President Trump.
The president is aware of the former vice president's passing, and as you saw, flags have been lowered to half-staff in accordance with statutory law.
Cheney passed away Monday night due to complications with pneumonia and heart disease. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Coming up on KTVU News at 6:30, the polls are closed in New York City. Details on one of the most consequential mayor's races the city has seen in years. And California Senator Alex Padilla makes an announcement about his future political plans and whether it includes a run for governor. And now to our top stories. There were conflicting messages from the White House over funding for the federal food assistance program. President Trump posted on social media that money would not be given out until the government reopens. Then his press secretary said later the administration would comply with 2 federal judges' orders and fund the food aid. This as the government shutdown now stretches into the day 35, which is the longest in history. The driver of a U-Haul that reversed toward officers at Coast Guard Island during an immigration protest is now facing federal charges. 26-year-old Brendan Monroe Thompson has been charged in federal court with assaulting federal officers with a deadly or dangerous weapon. And former Vice President Dick Cheney has died at the age of 84. Cheney served under President George W. Bush for 8 years, playing a key role in the war on terror after the 9/11 attacks. Before that, Cheney held positions in Congress, White House Chief of Staff, and led the Pentagon. His family says he died yesterday due to complications with pneumonia and heart disease. Well, you're watching KTVU Fox 2 News at 6:30. As we continue our coverage of Election Day, we now turn to a closely watched race that could have national impacts. We're talking about the race for New York City mayor. Polls did close at the top of the hour, and candidates are the front-runner Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is running as an independent, and Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa. Let's take a live look at the current voting results right now. An estimated 60% of votes have been counted. Right now, Mamdani is in the lead with 50% of the vote. Cuomo trailing behind with 42%. Sliwa has about 8% of those votes. And for more insight on this heated race, we spoke with Associate Professor of Political Science Jacob Nieheisel from the University at Buffalo.
I mean, I really think that after the primary, all of it was kind of posturing. Nothing that happened after that point was fundamentally going to change the direction of this race. Whether it was Adams dropping out and endorsing Cuomo more or less, whether it was Trump recently coming in on Cuomo's side, or even the money that came in support of Cuomo. I think after the primary, this one was pretty much sealed up.
We'll keep you updated on this race as votes continue to come in. Joining us now is political analyst Brian Sobel. Brian, I want to start with another race, though, because in New Jersey, Fox and the AP have just called that race for Democratic Representative Mikey Sherrill, and this is one of the closely watched races, as well as the governor's race in Virginia. Both of these states now choosing Democratic governors. Tell us what this means and the impact here. You can see the results here. Mikey Sherrill with 56.8% of the vote over Jack Ciatrelli. So give us your reaction here to both New Jersey and Virginia electing Democratic governors.
Well, if the trend continues in New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill has done very, very well there. There was some talk that her opponent, the Republican, was maybe making some headway, but it's clear at this hour that she may win this going away. Also true of Spanberger in Virginia. Virginia now has their 75th governor, the first woman governor in the history of Virginia, and so you have these 2 women governors being elected, both Democrats. And I think some of the debate will begin around what national story is this telling. Spanberger in her remarks spoke to the fact that her win in Virginia had national implications. We'll see what Sherrill has to say. So that's the question at this hour, along with what happens in New York City and Prop 50 in California.
So these races now going to Democrats, does that kind of put some wind in the sails of Democrats as this tide takes us into the midterms next year?
I think Democrats believe that, and I think a lot of people will feel like if these 4 elections go in the direction of Democrats, that, to use your phrase, there's wind in their sails. A lot of time before the midterms, but the midterms are the great barometer of what's going to happen for a president's last 2 years in office. So very important races tonight. They are races for governor, so not affecting the Senate or the House of Representatives, but you start looking for trending, and this is an interesting trend tonight.
Okay, let's go back to the mayoral race in New York City. Polls there closing about 30 minutes ago. More people have already voted in this race than any other mayoral election there since 2001. What does that say about the voter sentiment and Zohran Mamdani, who is a clear frontrunner?
30 years, this is the largest participation of New Yorkers. Probably 1.7 million New Yorkers will vote tonight, probably larger than that. So, and you have these candidates, but this was a very controversial race, obviously. Mamdani is a progressive socialist. Really appealed to a lot of younger voters in New York, people who wanted change. Andrew Cuomo was a household name, had his problems in public office, and Curtis Sliwa has been around forever, but has his own constituency, but it roughly sits at 8 or 9%. Had Sliwa earlier in the race dropped out and other things happened, maybe this would be a different race, but it looks like at this hour that Mamdani is going to move out into a victory, but with one exception. I think a lot of people early on thought he would really clear the field out, and at this hour he's running 8-10 points ahead of Cuomo. So Cuomo did catch up to some extent.
Okay, finally here, we can't let you go without asking about the redistricting measure in California, Prop 50. It is likely to pass, but in terms of the overarching theme, what do these 4 races say about the sentiment of the electorate?
It could say that, hey, we've been listening to Donald Trump for a while, and we need to start pushing back. In Prop 50, it's been very clear here in California and in the Bay Area what this is about. This was to go head-to-head with Texas on congressional districts and the numbers of Republicans and Democrats coming from each of these states. But it is also somewhat of a referendum on Governor Gavin Newsom and a couple of other people, including the people who put their money behind Prop 50.
Okay, sounds good. Before we let you go, I do want to mention the AP has just called the New York City mayor's race for Democrat Zohran Mamdani. So there we go. We just have our results in with the AP now calling it, and he has won the New York City mayor's race. Brian Sobel, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Have a great evening.
Well, California Senator Alex Padilla announced he will not run for governor. Padilla made that announcement today on Capitol Hill.
And so it is with a full heart and even more commitment than ever that I am choosing to not run for a governor of California next year. I choose not just to stay in the Senate, I choose to stay in this fight because the Constitution is worth fighting for. Our fundamental rights are worth fighting for.
Padilla is a prominent critic of President Trump and his administration. He says America is in disarray over the White House policies. Coming up, we'll show you a creative way a Bay Area woman is stepping up to help her neighbors with food assistance. And we're learning more tonight about the future of the Macy's flagship store in Union Square, more than a year after the company announced it was leaving. Back now to our coverage of the New York City's mayor's race and taking a look at the results here. The AP just reported minutes ago, Zohran Mamdani has been elected as the city's new mayor. He defeats former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa and will replace outgoing Mayor Eric Adams. Mamdani is a self-described democratic socialist, and he is the youngest mayor in over a century to take this position. He is only 34 years old. And of course, he was criticized by President Trump, drew scorn from the president, one of his main critics. But this is a big win for him tonight in New York City as he becomes the newest mayor of that city. CalFresh recipients remain in limbo tonight with payments still on hold, but communities are coming together to support those in need. New at 6, KTVU's Crystal Bailey introduces us to a North Bay woman who turned her little free libraries into mini pantries.
Just down the street from San Marin High School in Novato, the shelves of a little library are stocked with food.
This is going to be the permanent food one.
Siobhan Gibson is now building her third little library. She started out providing books that are banned in schools across the country, calling it the blacklisted bookshelf back in March.
And then the government shut down.
So last week she pivoted, restocking the libraries with non-perishables and essentials like feminine hygiene products and deodorant.
I looked this morning and we were almost out of toothbrushes and toothpaste.
She says she knows what it's like to struggle and wants to pay it forward.
There was a time in my life when I did not have a lot of food and I needed help, and 3 people helped me, no questions asked.
And over at the North Marin Community Services, a host site for the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, Tuesdays is Food Pantry Day, where 275 families are receiving fresh groceries. The CEO says about half of their clients are also CalFresh recipients. And like other food banks, the organization is seeing an increase in demand.
Today we have about 100 people on the wait list.
One CalFresh recipient who wants to remain anonymous says he stood at a grocery store on Sunday ready to use the funds on his SNAP card, but was shocked to find that the card was frozen with a balance on it.
All the news reports from a couple days ago had said now, this won't affect the use of your card and your existing balance and all existing benefits, but for whatever reason it seems that at midnight on November 1st, the card stopped working.
He says the help from the community is what's keeping his family's cupboard stocked.
Nobody's going to go hungry this week, but were things to continue this way, then you see some issues.
North Marin Community Services is accepting food donations for an emergency stash and is expanding its food pantry to support more of the community.
You never know when you're going to be that family in need, and so really building on each other's compassion in our community is this something special about Marin County.
For Gibson, she hopes her little pantries make the difference during this uncertain time.
If our government is not going to take care of us, we need to find and help each other.
And with 4 other little libraries on her street alone, she hopes to inspire others in the North Bay to turn their libraries into food pantries.
And if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Well, Gibson says a third little pantry like this one stocked with spaghetti and soup will be here by the end of the week. And over at the food bank, they say they're in need of non-perishable proteins, including canned tuna and nut butters. In Novato, Crystal Bailey, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
An approaching storm going to whip the Bay Area with rain and wind. I've got details coming right after the break.
And now to KTVU's Alex Savage with a look at some of the stories we're working on for West Coast Wrap at 7 right here on KTVU.
All right, Christina, thank you. Coming up tonight at 7, police are searching for the thieves who used that stolen car to plow into an Arizona smoke shop and making off with valuable merchandise. We'll tell you about the reward the business owner is now offering in this case as he works to repair his shop and try to take care of his customers. Plus, food banks all across the West are being forced to turn people away as they struggle to keep up with the number of people in need of groceries at this moment. The message from some local nonprofits as SNAP benefits are cut during the government shutdown. We'll have those stories and a whole lot more coming up tonight at 7 on West Coast Wrap. And of course, that's followed by the KTVU Fox 2 News at 7:30 with Heather Holmes.
Alex, thank you. But first, new developments on the fate of San Francisco's Macy's in Union Square. What we're learning about the future of the flagship store. New at 6, the mayor of San Francisco announced today on X that the Union Square Macy's will stay open indefinitely. Macy's has entered an agreement to redevelop its space in San Francisco's Union Square, but its flagship store will be a part of that redevelopment. Macy's will partner with Michael Covarrubias, a San Francisco developer who has helped revitalize several parts of the city. This comes after Macy's announced in 2024 that it planned to close that location, but now, according to the mayor, the store will be a part of the new renovation plans.
Oh, that puts a smile on my face for sure. Hopefully you as well. Let's get outdoors, talk about what is coming our way. Quite a different story for your Bay Area Wednesday compared to what we enjoyed today. A live look there over San Francisco. Still fairly quiet, but changes are coming. I'm going to show you that momentarily. Right now we are in the 60s, 64 San Francisco, 64 outside your door, Palo Alto. The storm already bringing wet, windy weather to areas over the Pacific Northwest and Northern California. For us, it arrives during the overnight hours and is going to strike us just in time for the morning commute. Here's a look at what we're seeing out there right now. A wind advisory starts at 10 o'clock this evening and will go until tomorrow afternoon. We could see wind gusts to 50 miles per hour over parts of the Bay Area, and there is a stretch along the North Bay coastline where we could see winds to 60 miles per hour with a high wind warning expected there. So in addition to the wet weather for tomorrow, do be prepared for the winds on our bridges, on our roadways, especially if you have a high-profile vehicle. You're going to want to take it easy. When it comes to rainfall amounts, really going to hit the North Bay. Anywhere from 1 inch to 2.5 inches will be a possibility. But then south of the Golden Gate, you see it drops off dramatically. Still enough to get us wet, still enough to make those roadways slick for tomorrow. Just be careful and give yourself some extra time. Now, in addition to water falling from the sky, we have the king tides back, and we are looking at low-lying flooding for areas adjacent to the bay. The next high tide comes in at 10:18 in the morning, so do expect this as well. Let's time out the system. During the overnight hours, it's moving through Northern California. Here we are, 4 a.m. really coming down over the North Bay. See the oranges and the reds embedded in there. Even a slim chance at maybe a thunderstorm or two rolling through. 6 a.m. We are covered from the North Bay to the South Bay. Give yourself extra time, and remember when you're on the roadway to give yourself extra space. It will begin to work into the Sierra during the late morning hours, and then by noontime and into the 5 o'clock afternoon commute, scattered showers. So a different story. It's going to be a quick moving system. Temperatures tomorrow morning in the 50s, and then as we get into the afternoon, low to mid to upper 60s. Scatter showers remaining in the forecast. May squeeze out a few more on Thursday before we dry out, and then we are dry and warmer as we head into your Bay Area weekend. Upper 60s at the coast to low 70s inland. Christina?
All right, Rosemary, thank you. Would you use AI to shop for groceries? Still ahead, the new feature that promises consumers more bang for their buck.
test the toughness of the Kia Sorento X-Pro and the Kia Sorento Turbo Hybrid, we recreated some of the wettest springs, hottest summers, windiest falls, and coldest winters to prove these three-row SUVs were built for the unstoppable. Get 0% APR for up to 48 months, plus $1,000 retail bonus cash on the purchase of select new 2025 Sorento models.
Game 7 of the World Series between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Toronto Blue Jays on Saturday captivated North America, delivering record-breaking viewership. The thrilling extra-inning matchup drew nearly half of the entire Canadian population, with more than 18 million viewers tuning in for some portion of the decisive contest. Here in the U.S., the game averaged just under 26 million viewers in the United States, peaking with over 31 million in the final dramatic moments. Across the pond, soccer superstar David Beckham is now Sir David Beckham. He was knighted today by King Charles during a ceremony at Windsor Castle for his work in sport and services to charity. Aside from his soccer career, the 50-year-old Beckham has supported a number of charities, serving as a goodwill ambassador for UNICEF for the last 20 years.
I cried when I first found out, and possibly for a few months after it as well. No, it's just a huge honour. You know, it's a huge honour to be here at Windsor Castle. It's a huge honour to receive this from His Majesty the King, and you know, it's all round a very special day for us.
He was joined at the ceremony by his wife, fashion designer Victoria Beckham, and his parents. Knighthoods are given twice a year to a handful of people for their significant contributions to Great Britain. San Francisco's Union Square Ice Rink is set to open tomorrow. The skating rink will offer Learn to Skate events with Kaiser Permanente on the weekends. There will also be Flashback Friday events where people can skate to the music of the 80s, as well as classical music nights and silent events with headphones and much, much more. This rink will stay open through the holidays until January 9th. Grocery delivery company Instacart today launched a new AI feature. In partnership with companies such as OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google, the platform will use AI to offer a cart assistant to help with meal planning, budgeting, and product recommendations. It will also provide real-time looks into what's on store shelves to help keep more products in stock at all times. Sprouts and Kroger stores will be the first to use the AI assistant through Instacart. And before we wrap things up here, we want to get you back out to our coverage of the New York City's mayor's race. A big moment within the last half hour, as we reported, Zohran Mamdani has now been elected as the city's new mayor in New York City, defeating Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa. You can see there he has 51% of the vote. Mamdani is a self-described democratic socialist, the youngest mayor in over a century at 34 years old. And this really caps a stunning ascent for the state lawmaker who is set to become the city's most liberal mayor in generations. Now, this is a big victory for the Democratic Party. As we mentioned, he does defeat Cuomo and Sliwa. There are some concerns from skeptics who say he has an unrealistic campaign promises, but of course we'll have more tonight coming up at 7:30, as well as our 10 and 11 o'clock news. We also have a special digital show at 8 o'clock. We hope you join us on Fox Local for that. Thanks so much for joining us here. West Coast Wrap is next on KTVU, and if you'd like to stream the latest news and weather on your smart TV anytime, go download our Fox Local app. Good night.
On this election night across the country, a statewide ballot measure here in the West has national implications, with the outcome potentially helping to shift the balance of power in Congress.
We need to save our democracy. There are no kings.
Everything you hear from Newsom, from Obama, and the commercials are just total lies.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. With voters across the country weighing in on key races and ballot measures, this election is the first chance to gauge how Americans are feeling about President Trump's performance in his second term. Polls are still open in many states here in the West, including in California. That's where Proposition 50 is getting a whole lot of attention. It's Governor Gavin Newsom's response to Texas, where lawmakers drew new congressional maps to help Republicans ahead of next year's midterms. Prop 50 would redraw congressional maps in California to favor Democrats. Fox's Sarah Allegre is joining us now live from Riverside, California. This is an area of the state where one Republican congressman potentially could lose his seat if voters approve the statewide ballot measure. Sarah?
Alex, absolutely. This is one of the larger and highly contested counties here in the state. So lots of eyes here on Riverside County, where district line shifting could really shift the balance of power here is significantly. So we know Governor Gavin Newsom, he's trying to level the playing field, looking at what's happening in Texas, redrawing congressional maps. And we are here, an hour away until those polls close, and we have several voters standing in line who are ready to vote yes or no on Proposition 50. They have been here for hours waiting to cast that ballot. Now, looking at this, Alex, from that national scale, Republicans, they hold that narrow majority in the U.S. House. So any kind of shift could really have some big time national implications. So voters today, there's a lot of pressure on them.
It's pretty crazy that we have to continue to deal with the administration office that we have right now, and they keep kind of picking at our communities and trying to shut some of our communities out. If we don't have a fair election going in through years to come, then really what is going to be the positive change that both sides would like to see?
I'm voting no, of course, because everything you hear from Newsom, from Obama, and the commercials are just total lies.
For change here. On your left, you're looking at the current map of California's congressional districts. On your right is the new map voters are deciding on today. Now, this measure would split several right-leaning districts, creating more pickup opportunities for Democrats. Now, Prop 50 is Governor Newsom's response to the state of Texas, where Republican legislator there. They have approved a new map this summer that added 5 GOP seats. Meanwhile, the Justice Department announced earlier this week it's sending monitors to 5 California counties to oversee voting and make sure election laws are followed. Now, some local election watchdogs here in Riverside say that's needed.
I think the federal government is aware of the problems in California in particular, and our county just reveals the same kind of problems they have in other counties. A fraudulent vote cancels a legitimate vote, and that's what we're concerned about.
The California Secretary of State responding to the Fed's move, saying the bottom line is California elections have been validated by the courts. California voters will not be deceived by someone who consistently makes desperate, unsubstantiated attempts to dissuade Americans from participating in our democracy. California voters will not be sidelined from exercising their constitutional right to vote. And the decision on Prop 50 will ultimately decide on the congressional maps here for the next few election cycles. It would last till 2030. And again, Alex, just lots of eyes up and down state lines.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Now, also, this was Governor Gavin Newsom's effort here to put Proposition 50 on the ballot in California. And there's a lot at stake for the governor here. What does the outcome of the election tonight mean for Governor Newsom's presidential ambitions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Prop 50 and the success of that would give him some national name recognition. I mean, we're looking at donors outside the state of California, infrastructure as well, name recognition, as I said. So this goes far beyond the state of California. It goes to the national scale. And as we talked about, it has national influence. I also think in a way with this, he's going against President Trump. In that sense, he's creating this anti-Trump image for himself and creates himself as this contender. So looking at this as a wider scale, zooming the picture out rather than statewide to national scale. He's pitted himself against the president, and I think this will play big for people who are not exactly happy with the direction the nation is headed, and vice versa.
All right, we appreciate the update. That is Sarah Allegre reporting live for us tonight from Riverside, California. Sarah, thank you. Now, earlier we spoke with political science professor Melissa Michelson from Menlo College in the Bay Area about the message that a Prop 50 victory potentially could send.
Even just a narrow margin of Democrats winning this one is saying this is what Californians care about. We care about the 2026 midterms and this battle for Congress and to provide a check on the Trump administration more than we care about small g good government.
And right now, Republicans hold a 3-seat edge in the U.S. House. But Professor Michelson said many states are already gerrymandered to favor a particular party. So passage of Proposition 50 potentially could help to give Democrats a strong chance of winning control of the House next year. Well, there are other places here in the West with statewide ballot measures. In Washington, voters are being asked whether funds from a long-term care insurance program should be invested in the stock market. Supporters say harnessing the growth potential would secure the fund's long-term stability. Opponents, however, argue that private investments offer no guarantees and market volatility could shrink that fund. Polls close in less than 1 hour across Washington. Tonight, Fox 13's Sean Chitnis shows us how election officials in the state are preparing to count ballots.
Good morning, and we have been on a tour all morning long here in Renton, checking out King County election headquarters, and at a fitting place to end, we want to introduce Haley Watkins with King County Elections to talk to us a little bit about where we are and what is happening in this part of the building.
Absolutely. We are in our tabulation scan room. So at this point, the ballots have been verified, they've been opened, and they are ready to get into the system to be counted. So that's what those machines behind us are doing. They are scanning those images in. Those images are stored on our secure server, and then after 8 o'clock tonight, we'll run that results report and count those votes together.
And just for folks to, appreciate, they're being scanned here, the data is there, but you guys don't start the counting until the election is essentially over or, ballots are done being collected.
That's exactly right. We can do every step of the process except for actually counting those votes or tabulating those votes together.
And so with that in mind, it's election day. People may have been waiting until the last day, the last hour to get this done. What options do you still have at this point?
So the best way to return your ballot at this point is to get it into a drop box by 8 p.m. sharp. If you're not registered, you still have an opportunity to come get registered at one of our vote center locations located across King County. You can also get a replacement ballot if you need one. And really important to come and see us either at one of those vote centers or get to a drop box by 8 p.m. sharp.
Right, and we've been mentioning that putting the ballot in the mail and trying to get it postmarked at this point is not as secure, not as likely to be guaranteed as doing it in the drop box. And so that's why we've been emphasizing that. Let's talk about turnout. This is what we call an off-year election, but it is one with a lot of local races. What are you expecting for turnout?
We've projected 45% turnout for this election. We're sitting at about 22% as of this morning, but ballots are coming back in quickly through drop boxes and through the mail. So we expect to see that number tick up as we get closer to 8 p.m. tonight.
And it's worth comparing to what we saw just last year with the presidential election, right? Turnout is not going to be at that level.
Yes. So in a presidential election, last year we saw 82% turnout in our presidential. Of course, 45 is going to be a little bit lower than that. But of course, vitally important races on those ballots in front of voters in this election.
And it's so great that you still have time to be a part of the process. You can even register, as you heard Haley say, and of course, make sure you take advantage of those drop boxes and voting centers near you so you can be part of the process before the deadline at 8 p.m. tonight. Guys, back to you.
And that was Fox 13's Sean Chitnis reporting tonight from Washington. Now, in Colorado, early results in a pair of statewide ballot measures show voters like the idea of improving the financial support for programs that offer students free meals. One of those measures asks whether the state should retain tax surpluses for those meals. It's still early here, but so far you can see just about 63% of voters favor that plan. Another statewide ballot measure asks whether taxes should be increased in Colorado for that program. And right now you can see that that measure has 57% support compared to 43% of voters who are rejecting that plan. Let's turn now to another race that's getting a lot of attention across the country, including here in the West, and that is the race for New York City mayor. The polls closed in New York a little more than an hour ago, and already the Associated Press is projecting that the Democrat Zoran Mamdani will win this race. You can see Mamdani there with 50% support compared to 42% support for the independent candidate Andrew Cuomo, and you can see 7% of voters supporting the Republican in this race, Curtis Sliwa. Now, you can use our website, westcoastrep.com, to stay up to date on election results across the West and across the country. We are tracking all of those important races and ballot measures for you there. Let's turn now to a developing story that people are following here in the West and across the country tonight. 4 people have been killed and 11 others injured when a large UPS cargo plane crashed and exploded late today in Louisville, Kentucky. It happened as that plane was taking off from Muhammad Ali International Airport headed to Honolulu, Hawaii. This is video that captured the crash. You can see flames on the left wing of that plane as it's taking off moments before it goes down. The governor of Kentucky also says tonight that a business called Kentucky Petroleum Recycling appeared to be, quote, hit pretty directly as a result of that crash. Now, tonight, the airport is shut down and operations are expected to resume tomorrow morning. Well, tonight, tributes are pouring in for former Vice President Dick Cheney, who made Wyoming his home. Cheney died yesterday from complications of pneumonia and heart disease. He served under former President George W. Bush, who put out a statement today saying, quote, in our long discussions about the qualities a vice president should have, I realized that Dick Cheney was the one I needed. Friends and colleagues are remembering Cheney as one of the most polarizing yet influential figures in American politics. He consistently defended controversial tools of surveillance, detention, and inquisition in response to the September 11th terror attacks. Wyoming Senator John Barrasso paid tribute to him on the Senate floor today.
Dick is going to be remembered as a towering figure who helped guide the course of history, certainly in Wyoming and also in the United States and, of course, around the world. My prayers are with his wife, Lynn, with daughters Liz and Mary, and with his grandchildren as they celebrate this incredible man.
And the senator there referring to former Wyoming Senator Liz Cheney, a Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney, that is Dick Cheney's daughter. Flags in Arizona and across the country flying at half-staff to honor the former vice president. Dick Cheney was 84 years old. Newly released surveillance video shows brazen thieves crashing a car right into a smoke shop here in the West. Coming up, how the shop's owner catered to customers just hours after that theft.
And a live look there at the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, where stormy weather is on the way. I'll have a look at what we can expect here in the West coming up.
Also coming up tonight, people working to help SNAP recipients waiting for their accounts to be replenished turn away a long line of people hoping to get food. Tonight, talks appear to be intensifying in Washington, D.C. toward an end to the government shutdown. The closure is set to become the longest ever after midnight tonight. Republicans need buy-in from 5 Senate Democrats in order to pass a bill. The negotiations are now centering on a way to reopen the federal government and come to a resolution on the Democrats' demands to deal with expiring health care subsidies.
Also seems they're pretty dug in, and they're okay screwing people over on their health care.
My guess is that later this week we'll end up funding the government as Republicans had proposed 35 days ago.
If the Senate does pass a new bill, House Speaker Mike Johnson said it's possible the House could try to reconcile its version this upcoming weekend. In Arizona, food banks say they are overwhelmed by the number of people in need. At the Streets of Joy Food Bank in Mesa, they say 150 food boxes were gone in less than an hour. The founder had to tell a long line of people they had run out of food. Lutheran Social Services says last year they gave away an average of 500 food boxes each month. This year, that number has swelled to nearly 900 boxes. Dee McDonald says she struggles to feed her 5 grandsons.
Feels like sitting in your room and crying. That's what it feels like, to be honest. Which I've done at times. And I try to do that in my room, away from the boys, like I'm about to do now, not do it on camera. But that's what it feels like. It's like, how am I going to feed these boys? Please.
Advocates called on Congress to end the government shutdown. They say 15% of families in Maricopa County, the Phoenix area, count on SNAP benefits. Turning now to talk about our weather here in the West, and people in the Pacific Northwest are in for another night of rain. This is a live look at downtown Seattle tonight, where rain is expected to fall through tomorrow morning, and we are seeing other storms moving across the west. For more, let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Rosemary Orozco, who is tracking the rain and the showers that are now headed for the Bay Area. Hey, Rosemary.
You're right. Yes, that storm is going to move through tonight into tomorrow. Alex, I'll show you that here momentarily. First, a look over San Francisco, where quite a different story this afternoon. A beautiful day over the city with mostly sunny skies and 69 degrees this afternoon. Big changes already on the horizon here. You can see the Pacific Northwest as well as Northern California with the wet weather there. For the Bay Area, it will roll in during the overnight hours and going to hit a lot of the West Coast during the morning commute. Comes with a number of advisories. We've got an advisory for low-lying areas due to the king tides that are also back this week. So in addition to rain falling from the sky, the shade of green is a coastal flood advisory that stretches down along the coastline. That shade there of periwinkle is actually a wind advisory. You can see widespread from the southern edge of Oregon into California and down towards the Sacramento Valley and then over towards the coastline. And the shade of pink, high wind warning, which means the advisory could see areas with wind gusts to 50 miles per hour. The warning 60 miles per hour. It does include the Sierra, and it includes areas over towards Nevada. So a windy one on the way, as well as wet. Here's a look at the forecast when it comes to the rainfall timeline. 6 a.m. tomorrow morning from Washington into central California. The folks that are going to be on those roadways going to be hit pretty hard with not just the wet, but the windy conditions. And then as we get into the afternoon, it does begin to taper off. We will have drying conditions for many over towards California. Into the Pacific Northwest, the rain is expected to continue for a little bit longer. With this next system here, most of the rain will be over northern California, 3 to 4 inches or so. But the San Francisco area expected to get about a ½ inch. And areas over Southern California going to remain dry. Here's a look at Southern California today, mostly sunny 74. The desert Southwest also enjoying the sunny, warm weather, where Arizona, Phoenix, 91 degrees this afternoon. Here's a look at the forecast. We're going to remain dry and warm over the southern half there of the west. San Francisco will dry out on Thursday with temperatures in the 60s. A little bit cool and soggy remaining over Seattle through Thursday. Back to you.
Okay, Rosemary, thank you. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, activity picked up by a surveillance camera jostled an Arizona business owner awake. Up next, his reaction to the incredible destruction that was caused by thieves. We have new information tonight about the disappearance of a 9-year-old girl from Lompoc, California. Investigators say Melody Buzzard was last seen on October 9th near the Colorado-Utah border during a multi-state road trip with her mother, Ashley Buzzard. When Ashley returned from that trip on October 10th, Melody was no longer with her. According to the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office, Ashley was unable to explain where Melody was and has not cooperated with detectives in this case. Investigators say they are now searching for surveillance video or witnesses in areas including Green River and Panguitch, Utah, as well as Northwest Arizona and Primm, Nevada. Anyone who has any information about where the young girl is asked to reach out to the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. The owner of a smoke shop in Arizona was shocked to see images picked up by his store's security camera. Fox 10's Taylor Wirtz spoke with him about the destructive burglary at his business as thieves crashed a car right through the front of his shop.
This is what Up in Smoke owner Fadi Sayed woke up to on his security cameras.
I check the cameras and I see a car parked right in the back of the store, like right in the middle of the store.
This surveillance video shows the SUV bust through the smoke shop's windows and land in the middle of the store.
I thought it was either a drunk driver or a snatch and grab, you know? And like my heart started pumping right away and I got really nervous.
Tempe police say the thieves used a stolen car from Phoenix. You can see the driver get out wearing a mask and start taking things, putting it all in a cooler. Sayed says he seemed to focus on vape products.
A bunch of disposable vapes.
Their accomplice waits outside and honks the getaway car, giving the all clear to load up the stolen merch. Then one more trip back before they drive off.
Very reckless, very stupid.
Many of Sayed's regular customers showed up today scratching their heads at what they saw.
Did someone drive through the place? Did a tornado happen? It's crazy.
While Sayed says the suspects did get away with inventory, it isn't anything compared to the cost of the damage.
Oh, a lot of damage. Door's gone, we need a new gate. You know, the showcases are destroyed.
But even through the mess, he fulfilled orders through a side door today.
We can't close. We can't afford to close.
He says business and his customers are the priority.
Tomorrow's a new day. You know, we're going to pick up the pieces and, you know, things will be better than I think before, hopefully.
And that was Fox 10's Taylor Wirtz reporting tonight from Arizona. Police in Tempe continue investigating that break-in. And this video from California shows another case of thieves using bold tactics to burglarize a business. Surveillance cameras captured images of suspects breaking through the wall of a trading card shop in Los Angeles. The store's co-owner says the thieves gained access through a wall shared with a vacant building right next to the shop.
They were so fast and so targeted that they just, within a minute or two, took all of it. And so it was really shocking and wildly sophisticated, honestly. And they took the things that were super valuable.
The co-owner of that business believes about $110,000 worth of merchandise was taken. He says he is now beefing up security around that store. And finally, tonight, sheriff's deputies in Colorado responded to an unusual barricade situation. Body camera video from the Larimer County Sheriff's Office shows deputies helping to deal with an unwanted intruder, a bear that had broken into a parked SUV and was trapped inside. The owners called 911 and deputies used a handle release mechanism to open the car door from a safe distance. The bear jumped out and ran off into the woods. Despite the damage that was done to the inside of that SUV, the owners were grateful for the deputies' work. There was no food inside the SUV, so it remains unclear tonight exactly why the bear decided to break in. All right, that does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. We appreciate you watching as always. And before we go tonight, a quick reminder, you can stay up to date on all the stories we're covering online at our website. That includes our election results from across the West. Just head to westcoastwrap.com and don't forget to stream our shows with the free Fox Local app. Have a great night.
Now at 7:30, mixed messages about funding for the federal food assistance program. It's creating even more uncertainty today for Bay Area families. And Election Day 2025, we are just 30 minutes away now from polls closing here in California, with voters deciding the fate of Proposition 50.
This is KTVU Fox 2 News at 7:30.
It's Governor Newsom's plan to redistrict congressional lines to favor Democrats. Good evening, everyone. I'm Heather Holmes, and it's in response to Republican redistricting efforts in other states. And tonight, well, it comes down to you. Let's go live now to San Francisco and a look at Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi's election night party. She is hosting election volunteers to thank them for their work. Pelosi has been pushing for passage of Proposition 50, calling the measure a defense of democracy. She joined Governor Newsom yesterday to make one final push for Prop 50. That measure aims to help Democrats win control of the House in a direct challenge to President Trump's agenda. Over the summer, Texas approved a new map that could help Republicans win 5 more House seats. If approved, well, Prop 50 would authorize a constitutional amendment here in California that puts the Independent Commission's map on hold temporarily through 2030. Here are the yes and no sides' final arguments in the last day of this campaign.
They poked the bear, and the bear is poking back, and we're going to get out there and win and send a powerful message not only to the people of the state of California, but the people all over the United States of America by going out in record numbers, yes, on 50.
Gerrymandering is wrong. When you have gerrymandering, then it's the politicians, not the voters, who have the power. And so Prop 50 is about one thing and one thing alone. It is bringing back gerrymandering to our state. It is bringing us back to the era of political gerrymandering that the voters moved us on from. It would be a regression for our democracy.
Election officials throughout the Bay Area say that voter turnout is indeed high for this special election. In Santa Clara County, officials say they expect voter turnout to reach the same level as midterm congressional elections in non-presidential election years, a number which they say is quite remarkable.
We're happy to have a smooth election. It seems like voters are turning out for this one. It seems like there's a lot of voter interest. We're looking at possibly 50 to 60% overall turnout.
It's very important. I think everyone should have to vote, especially if they have the right to vote. It's something impersonal, because we make a difference on voting.
Okay, so here's a look at the percentage of ballots already returned across the Bay Area. The largest counties are all reporting a full 1/3 or more of votes have already been cast and counted, as you see here, with Contra Costa and San Mateo counties leading the pack with about 37%. So joining me now on this election night is our political reporter, Greg Lee. Greg, always a pleasure to see you. So for many out there, Prop 50 is the only thing that was on their ballot. And as I just reported, turnout 38%. It seems as though this issue has been enough to galvanize people to head to the polls.
Those numbers are incredible, Heather. And you look statewide, 30% last night, even before today, where people were going to the polls. And it speaks a lot to interest in this, the way the yes side sort of framed this as a referendum on President Trump and an off-year election year. And in addition to that, you look at how much money was spent in this election. We're talking some record numbers, particularly on the yes side, to get the message out. The Berkeley IGS poll last week, one thing that stood out to me is 71% of people polled said they had heard a lot about Prop 50, which is pretty incredible when you consider kind of what they were sort of battling in terms of noise out there in the news.
Yeah, because redistricting, it's not a sexy topic.
A sexy topic.
And it's really not an easy topic. No. It's not a simple topic for people to understand, but nonetheless, people are turning out and are interested. First batch of results, we expect those to be released in about, 25 minutes or so at the top of the hour. What do we expect those results to show us?
Yeah, I think what we've been talking about all week is, after looking at the polls that skewed so in favor of the yes side, is what does that first batch look like in terms of the margin of yes? Because what we know, especially recently, is that Democrats, or the yes side in this case, were more comfortable with vote-in-mail voting. And so what we could see is a large gap for Democrats in the yes side early on. And as we get more numbers of in person, that it could sort of bring the no side back. But really, we're looking at that margin to see how big that gap is and if they are true to the polling, in which the polling shows the yes side cruising to victory here.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about the stakes, because they are high, especially for Governor Newsom. I mean, this is his measure. Let's say that the margin is substantial. I mean, what does that mean in terms of his effort to thwart President Trump and his agenda, and also to kind of buoy his presidential ambitions?
Yeah, I mean, look, just in this process, he has upgraded his sort of national presence, not just for Democrats, but the entire nation. He has positioned himself as chief antagonist to President Trump, and he wants to continue in that path. In addition to that, the governor has raised a lot of money for this proposition and found a lot of independent donors, small dollar donors, all the way up to big donors. And if he indeed does end up running for the White House, he's going to need that money to catapult him into being a significant contender, particularly in the primary.
So he's already kind of he's building that
That's
base. Right. Okay, we want to talk now about another race with national implications all the way across the country in New York City, the mayoral election there. And that race, Greg, has now been called for Zohran Mamdani. Want to take a look now at the results. The 34-year-old really cruising to victory here, defeating former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, as you see here. Let's talk about how this changes the party dynamics for Democrats. I mean, Mamdani is a Democratic socialist. He was able to energize progressives in New York City, really honing in on the issue of affordability.
Yeah, and you said it well there, Heather. You consider in 2024, Democrats left that beating in 2024 realizing they had no real message and they had no real messenger. And if you look at the gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey, two very moderate Democrats in Sherrill and Spanberger, which is very different than what Mamdani is. But I think for the Democratic Party, sure, they're going to have to figure out what is our identity as they approach their midterms, what is their identity as they approach the midterms, as well as moving forward. But tonight, you said it, energizing young people, energizing voters out. And that is what Mamdani certainly did. And I think that is something Democrats would like to carry for themselves into the midterms, into 2028.
Yeah, he certainly had a unique campaign, and it worked. All right, Greg Lee, I know you need to get back to work. Thank you for your great reporting, and looking forward to it tonight. Appreciate it. All right, well, the government shutdown, meantime, is hours away from hitting 36 days, making it the longest shutdown in U.S. history. And today, there were conflicting messages from the White House over funding for the federal food assistance program during the shutdown. President Trump posting on social media that money would not be given out until the government reopens. But later, the White House press secretary said the administration is complying with federal judges' orders to use contingency funds for the 1 in 8 Americans who receive food assistance. Today in the East Bay, Alameda County Community Food Bank opening new pop-up tents to help anyone in need.
This is day one at this location, and so far we've provided food to over 140 different families.
The average benefit is $190 a month, and it could take days or even weeks for those debit cards to be reloaded for the month of November. Well, with all of this uncertainty, CalFresh recipients are caught in the middle, but communities are coming together to support those in need. KTVU's Crystal Bailey introduces us to a North Bay woman who turned her little free libraries into, well, mini pantries.
Just down the street from San Marin High School in Novato, the shelves of a little library are stocked with food.
This is going to be the permanent food one.
Siobhan Gibson is now building her third little library. She started out providing books that are banned in schools across the country, calling it the blacklisted bookshelf back in March.
And then the government shut down.
So last week she pivoted, restocking the libraries with non-perishables and essentials like feminine hygiene products and deodorant.
I looked this morning and we were almost out of toothbrushes and toothpaste.
She says she knows what it's like to struggle and wants to pay it forward.
There was a time in my life when I did not have a lot of food and I needed help, and 3 people helped me, no questions asked.
And over at the North Marin Community Services, a host site for the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, Tuesdays is Food Pantry Day, where 275 families are receiving fresh groceries. The CEO says about half of their clients are also CalFresh recipients. And like other food banks, the organization is seeing an increase in demand.
Today we have about 100 people on the wait list.
One CalFresh recipient who wants to remain anonymous says he stood at a grocery store on Sunday ready to use the funds on his SNAP card, but was shocked to find that the card was frozen with a balance on it.
All the news reports from a couple days ago had said now, this won't affect the use of your card and your existing balance and all existing benefits, but for whatever reason it seems that at midnight on November 1st, the card stopped working.
He says the help from the community is what's keeping his family's cupboards stocked.
Nobody's going to go hungry this week, but were things to continue this way, then you see some issues.
North Marin Community Services is accepting food donations for an emergency stash and is expanding its food pantry to support more of the community.
You never know when you're going to be that family in need, and so really building on each other's compassion in our community is something special about Marin County.
For Gibson, she hopes her little pantries make the difference during this uncertain time.
If our government is not going to take care of us, we need to find and help each other.
And with 4 other little libraries on her street alone, she hopes to inspire others in the North Bay to turn their libraries into food pantries.
And if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Well, Gibson says a third little pantry like this one stocked with spaghetti and soup will be here by the end of the week. And over at the food bank, they say they're in need of non-perishable proteins, including canned tuna and nut butters. In Novato, Crystal Bailey, KTVU, Fox 2 News. An approaching storm will bring heavy rain and strong winds. I'll have a look at what you can expect for your Bay Area Wednesday coming up.
Also coming up tonight, a new effort to help solve cold cases in San Francisco. The change in policy that will allow more rewards to be offered in homicide investigations. Plus.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, I would be saying that too if I saw Steve Kerr on the other end there. A surprise call to a handful of Bay Area nonprofits. The new milestone just hit by the Golden State Community Foundation. New at 7:30 tonight, the San Francisco Police Department has launched a new campaign to try to help solve homicides, including cold cases. So it's called You Can Help Too. The department is offering rewards of up to $250,000 at its discretion for information that leads to criminal charges. That's a change from the previous policy where individuals could only be awarded if there was a conviction. The legislation passed by the Board of Supervisors earlier this year also allows rewards to be issued to people with a criminal history. Well, the man accused of sexually assaulting a child at the polo field in Golden Gate Park made his first court appearance today. District Attorney Brooke Jenkins says that Dominic Via Butrago is charged with several felonies, including forcible lewd acts upon a child, as well as kidnapping. The 19-year-old was tracked down with the use of DNA evidence and arrested last week in Pleasant Hill. The attack happened October 23rd in a public restroom while the victim was at soccer practice at the polo field. The suspect's grandmother was in the courtroom today, and she says he has mental health issues.
We're dealing with a child that was not in his right mind. This child has schizophrenia, he has mental developmental delay, some mild autism, ADHD, depression, anxiety.
Via Butrago did not enter a plea. The arraignment was continued to tomorrow morning. All right, taking a live look now at the Oakland estuary right outside our KTVU studios with the San Francisco skyline there in the distance. Heavy rain and strong winds expected to hit the region tomorrow, and we could see a little bit of a dicey morning commute. So let's bring in Rosemary now for a look. I mean, this could be significant rainfall.
You're right, especially for the North Bay. And the wind advisories go all the way until 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
So it's going to be quite blustery out there, and it's going to be wet. Giving you a look outside our doors because today, a beautiful one, a great day to get out and vote, right? By history standards, a stormy day will keep folks inside, and the election time doesn't fare out as well. Giving you a nice look, though, over San Francisco. That's gorgeous. 62 this afternoon in San Francisco, a 73 in Concord. And at this hour, most of us are in the 60s. 63 still San Francisco, 61 over Walnut Creek. Our winds picking up just a little bit. Not too bad just yet. Fairfield reporting an onshore breeze and gusting to 18. Oakland also reporting 18. But these winds will be increasing tonight. The wind advisory begins at 10 o'clock. We've got a lot of cloud cover out there, but the rain is still pretty much to the north of us. It's a quick moving system. It's going to move in time for the morning commute. Here's a look at 5 a.m. Here's a look at 7 a.m. And then into about noontime, it's already moving out. But it's going to hit us just at the right time to make things very messy out there. Anywhere from 0.2 of an inch of rain for the South Bay to 2.5 inches of rain for the North Bay. And those winds could reach 40 to 60 miles per hour. So wet and windy. In addition to rain falling from the sky, the king tides are with us. And tomorrow morning, we could see some low-lying flooding adjacent to the bay. So just something to be aware of tomorrow. It's going to be quite hazardous for many. Temperature-wise, we'll be in the 50s to start the day, and then the afternoon widespread 60s. Once this system moves out, we are going to be drying out, and temperatures are going to be rebounding back into the upper 60s to low 70s with dry weather in time for the weekend. Heather?
It was a chaotic scene. This was outside of Coast Guard Island last month during anti-ice protests. Well, coming up, we'll tell you about the driver now facing federal charges. We're taking a closer look at the complaint. And we have an update tonight following these tense moments. This was outside of Coast Guard Island, where the driver of a U-Haul reversed towards officers. This was last month at the Alameda-Oakland border. That driver is now facing federal charges. KTVU cameras were rolling when the driver sped up toward a row of armed Coast Guard security forces, prompting officers to repeatedly yell at the driver to stop before they fired their guns. The suspect, 26-year-old Brendan Monroe Thompson, has been charged in federal court with assaulting federal officers with a deadly or dangerous weapon. Authorities say the driver suffered a gunshot wound to the back and the abdomen. The 10-foot haul abandoned the 10-foot U-Haul nearby. After the shooting, the suspect was taken in for a mental health evaluation. KTVU legal analyst Michael Cardoza says mental health concerns would likely not matter until sentencing.
The fact that you simply did it makes it a general intent crime. That will come into play at sentencing. What effect, if any, the diminished capacity had on the decision.
Well, the shooting happened as protesters had gathered at Denison and Embarcadero in Oakland near the Coast Guard Island entrance to protest President Trump's threat to send federal agents to the Bay Area. Well, the man who fatally beat an 88-year-old woman, affectionately known as Grandma Huang, in San Francisco back in 2019, has been found guilty of her murder. Huang died from her injuries about a year after the attack. San Francisco prosecutors say that Keontae Gathron, now 25 years old, was also responsible for a series of attacks on people of Asian ancestry, as well as carjackings and armed robberies. Gathron is set to appear in court later this month for sentencing. He faces life in prison. So to come tonight, a record amount of grants for Bay Area nonprofits, all thanks to the Golden State Community Foundation. It is election night, and polls are set to close in just a few minutes. Voters across the state deciding the fate of Proposition 50. and whether the state will redraw its congressional lines. Our election coverage continues tonight at 8 o'clock on the Fox Local app. Our Mike Meback, Claudine Wong, and our political reporter Greg Lee will be closely following the results as they start to come in. Polls start to close again at 8 o'clock. They do close then, and we will be giving live updates. The app is free, remember, to download right there on your TV or phone. We'll do at 7:30 tonight. The Golden State Community Foundation just hit a huge new milestone. So today the foundation announced a record $4 million in grants to 62 Bay Area nonprofits. This brings the foundation's total impact to $52 million since it was created back in 2012. The grants will support a range of programs and organizations, including ones that support school readiness, elementary literacy, and STEAM as well. Earlier this week, a handful of Golden State Warriors, as well as head coach Steve Kerr and Valkyrie's head coach Natalie Nakase, made some calls to the grant recipients, letting them know the good news.
My heart started pumping right away, and I got really nervous.
Sorry, that was the wrong video, but I can tell you that the nonprofits were surprised when they saw Steve Kerr pop up on the Zoom call. It was a really great surprise for those nonprofits. By the way, those grants, they range from $30,000 to $85,000. And while the Oakland Unified and San Francisco Unified School Districts, they will receive $250,000 each. So again, great work by the Community Foundation and great work by those nonprofits who are making a difference right here in our communities every day. It's going to do it for me tonight on this election 2025. I'll see you right back here tomorrow for the news at 7:30. Don't forget to download the Fox Local app to your TV and phone again for more extended coverage of today's election and the fate of Proposition 50. See you right back here tomorrow, everybody.
You're so dumb. Banks are slow and they hide fees and transfers and exchange rates.
Always send money overseas with Wise.
He's right. Wise is fast and never hides fees like banks.
Okay, use Wise, but isn't it great? It feels like you're at a funeral, but you're happy about it.
You could save up to 70% when you send money abroad. Be smart. Get Wise.
It's 8 o'clock and polls have closed in an unprecedented election.
We have to react somehow to balance it back out again.
And if we don't have rural representation, then we lose those rural morals.
Voters statewide face one issue on whether to redraw the state's congressional maps.
Those enduring principles that our founding fathers lived and died for, all of them on the line today.
The ballot proposition could have big implications at the national level for next year's midterms.
They are trying to fight for democracy by getting rid of the democratic principles of California.
And other high-stakes races across the country could offer a snapshot of voters' feelings 1 year since Donald Trump reclaimed the White House.
And welcome to our special election coverage from KTVU. We are streaming live for the next hour right here on the Fox Local app. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Meeback.
And I'm Claudine Wong. We are tracking that statewide ballot proposition, some important local races, and some other notable elections in other parts of the country. The polls just closed in California moments ago, and we just got some results in.
That's right. The biggest question on the ballot, at least for voters right here in California, was Proposition 50. And just about a minute ago, the Associated Press called the race in favor of Prop 50. The initiative will suspend the state's independent redistricting commission and temporarily use a redrawn political map through the year 2030. Now, we're also keeping an eye on Measure A, that's out of Santa Clara County, a 5/8 of 1 cent sales tax increase that is designed to offset federal funding cuts and shore up revenue for health care services and public safety.
Now, on the national level, the Associated Press has already projected that New York City has elected Democrat Zohran Mamdani as the city's next mayor. In Virginia, Democrat Abigail Spanberger has been projected to become the state's first female governor. And in New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Sherrill is projected to win the governor's race there, beating a Trump-endorsed Republican.
Now, the conversation on redistricting comes as 4 states have already signed new congressional maps into law. We're talking about Texas, Missouri, Ohio, and North Carolina. Now, those moves are expected to redraw maps to give Republicans an advantage in as many as 9 congressional districts. States with Democratic majorities have proposed a response to that. Now, Prop 50, as we just reported, has passed right here in California, and Democrats now stand to gain as many as 5 seats in the Golden State. And other redistricting efforts in Virginia and New York could result in 4 additional seats for the Democratic Party, and lawmakers in Indiana are also considering to redraw the state's map there, which could net Republicans 1 to 2 additional congressional seats.
And the race really became a clash between Governor Newsom and President Trump in the first major election of Trump's second term. And our political reporter Greg Lee is here with the implications. Greg, this was a very fast result, as had been predicted.
Yeah, and this is what we saw in all the polls, and certainly this is an emphatic victory, particularly when you talk about Gavin Newsom battling President Trump in sort of this first election here. And now this could give Democrats the momentum and edge they're hoping for in the 2026 midterms, as the control of the House could very well run through the Golden State. Now, I want to tell you, earlier today, without evidence, the White House press secretary and the president alleged voter fraud in California's special election. The president posted this on Truth Social, quote, "The unconstitutional redistricting vote in California is a giant scam, and that the entire process, in particular the voting itself, is rigged. All mail-in ballots where the Republicans in the state are shut out is under very serious legal and criminal review. Stay tuned." State leaders, including the Secretary of State, slammed the president's claims, calling them baseless. Here's what the governor posted in response.
He suggests that the election has already been rigged. Sounds familiar. When we kicked off the campaign for Proposition 50, he sent out Border Patrol with masks to intimidate our kickoff rally. He does not believe in fair and free elections. What more evidence do we need of the importance of Proposition 50?
Now, the U.S. Department of Justice sent election monitors to parts of the state today. The state's Attorney General Rob Bonta responded by sending the state's own observers to monitor the monitors. Guys, again, talking about Prop 50 passing, there was a huge ground game by the Yes on 50 side. They spent a ton of money in a very short amount of time after raising a lot of money, which has led to this very emphatic victory for Governor Newsom and Democrats over the president.
I tell you what, right before I came out to the studio, I saw a live picture from Santa Ana, California tonight. This is like 7:45 in the evening. Long line
Yes.
People still waiting to vote here in California. What does this say about voter turnout? What are you expecting here?
Well, I think early on what we saw last night is that mail-in ballot was already at 30%. That's not including people that were in line to vote today. Right. And what that tells us is that those votes skewed heavily to the yes side, that the AP could call it, and also that people were on fire about this, that they were motivated to vote because they felt like this was their first chance, at least those on the yes side, to fire back at what they had seen with the Trump administration, some of the actions that have been taken, that we've seen with the National Guard, that we have seen with who they're blaming with this government shutdown, with SNAP benefits. And so that is what really drove, I think, the yes side out tonight.
And we're seeing a high voter turnout in multiple states, so it's not just California. So this surge, as we're looking for national trends, is appearing to be evident in this election. We do have some numbers we do want to put up on the screen to take a look at how these numbers are coming in for this yes vote. Wow. 74% for the numbers that are coming in right now. Certainly is very early. It is 8:07, and we'll still have to get some of these numbers. As Mike said, people are still voting because a lot of ballots have to be counted, but people are asking, and certainly analysts were saying, it's not a question of if it will pass, but how big of a margin will send a message as well.
And that is the margin, right? And what we would anticipate from this first batch that we should be clear about is that this first batch is typically just mail-in ballots. And what we know in the last couple of election cycles is that Democrats are more comfortable voting by mail early on, so that is likely what is being represented. We expect that margin perhaps to shrink a little bit because in-person voting recently tends to skew Republican, or in this case, on the no side. But the AP and others would not have called this race if that margin wasn't surely as big as it is. I mean, you're talking 50 points here.
Big night in New York City, Virginia, New Jersey for the Democratic Party. I'm wondering, if this didn't happen, if this Prop 50 did not exist, do you think Democrats would still have a chance to compete in those congressional districts that they're trying to get? Those 5 additional seats come the midterms?
Yeah, there was some thought that Democrats could pick off 2 to 3 seats even from those 5 that they are targeting. But now that they are going to look at these redrawn maps, and this is something we'll talk about with Dave McEwen, is that there will be legal challenges to the results tonight. But Democrats thought they could have picked off 2 or 3. But now this all but ensures it because you've redrawn those maps to benefit them in the form of Democrats. And going back to your point about the national landscape of these other races on the East Coast is a Democratic sweep. And if you look at how Democrats felt in 2024, after bruising losses, in all the conversation in the after-action report,
the party was down.
We have no messenger, we have no message, and it is not clear that they have that now, because is it Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, or is it Spanberger, is it Gavin Newsom? Who is it moving forward?
We'll find out.
This does give them some motivation moving forward.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. We do have team coverage from watch parties on both sides of the issue. Governor Newsom is expected at a Democratic watch party tonight in Sacramento. Congresswoman and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi holding a Yes on 50 event in San Francisco. Also, the Democratic Party is holding a watch party in that same very city.
And that is where we find KTVU's Amber Lee live in San Francisco tonight. Amber.
Claudine and Mike, I'm in downtown San Francisco at Harrington's Bar and Grill. This is no doubt a Yes on Prop 50 party held by State Assembly Member Matt Haney. Take a look behind me. The place is packed with supporters. Lots of cheers, lots of smiles over every Democratic Party victory. Here with me is Nancy Tung, San Francisco Party Chair, Democratic Party Chair. AP already called for Prop 50, so what's your reaction?
Well, that's exactly what we were hoping for, to see that Prop 50 was going to pass and give us an opportunity to make sure that we take back the House for the midterms in 2026. It's really just about leveling the playing field and making sure that we work really hard to get everybody elected, Democrats elected, to take back the House in 26. So I'm excited.
These seats that have the potential for flipping to Democratic, they're outside of the Bay Area, so where does all this enthusiasm come from?
Well, I really think it's a tangible thing for people to grab hold onto and to work towards a specific goal that has a realistic end date, so that we can see that we're making ground and then moving forward from there. So, I mean, obviously the Bay Area and San Francisco in particular is really heavily Democratic, but the Democrats here really want to see change at the federal level. They want to see that somebody is fighting against Trump in a way that really matters, and that's Congress. So we have lost all checks and balances in the courts, in Congress, in the Senate right now, and so this is really a way for people to feel like they are fighting back more than rallies, more than speeches, and more than holding signs up or honking horns. It is a way for them to say, yes, we have done something tangible, and let's take that momentum and move on to the midterms.
You're saying it's a referendum on President Trump?
Oh, absolutely. This is 100%. Every single election that you see tonight, not just in the Bay Area or San Francisco, but across the nation, is a rebuke to Trump, 100%.
Would you say this is only the beginning? You said there's a lot more work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. So for people who have put a lot of time and energy into Prop 50, we want to take that energy and channel it into making sure that those 5 congressional seats actually go Democratic. They are in California, and a lot of people have always said that the way to flipping the House is through California. That is our path, and we need to make sure we convert on those possibilities.
There are other states that are going to follow suit, right? What California has done.
So Texas has already redistricted their seats, and I think it's going to depend from state to state what their procedures are, whether or not they're going to be able to change any more of their congressional balances. And so we'll see. But in California, we know what we want to do. We want to make sure that our congressional delegation is as blue as we can possibly make it.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks. So there you have it. Already AP has called it in favor of Prop 50, and also I was told, a large voter turnout in a non-presidential election year is pretty amazing, and it's in favor of the Democratic Party. Claudine, Mike?
Yeah, big party there where you're at. We see the district attorney, Brooke Jenkins, also behind you. Amber, thank you for that.
All right, and there were also people gathering tonight who were hoping that Prop 50 would not pass.
That's right. KTVU Zach Sauce live tonight in Los Gatos, where some Prop 50 opponents have gathered. Zach?
Yeah, in a fairly somber mood here, understandably. This is not a result that they totally that was totally unexpected. They've looked at some of the early votes that came in, the early voters, and they really did not feel that they had the turnout they needed to vote down this measure. And then, of course, as they watched some of the early results come in on the East Coast going for Democrats, that sort of sealed the deal for them. So this result, not entirely unexpected. I'm joined by Lori Oseberg. She is a no voter here. What do you feel led to this result tonight?
Trump hate, and I'm in shock because I honestly felt like Californians would think, I think this is going to backfire. 6 years is a very, very long time. It's not a short temporary amount of time, because in 4 years and 2 years, many, many things have passed. I've historically voted for all the social services, but been mindful of our budget. And there are a lot of things that have not been accounted for with where the money has been spent. And I thought that Californians would use their minds and not their Trump hate to actually make a decision that will affect our neighborhoods, our children. I'm here for the kids, my grandkids, and I am just, I didn't think the Trump hate would go this far, but apparently it did.
How do you regroup from here as a voter?
I would like to see unity. I think the next step, to be honest, is to get voter ID on the ballot. I think we need to put a lot of these arguments to rest and just get every vote, every signature. It doesn't mean we're not going to have boxes to put our ballots in, but we need to actually get voter ID on the ballot so we stop arguing on the two sides of the parties. I think this is going to backfire. I've always been an independent. I'm undeclared, to be honest. And I really didn't think that Proposition 50 would actually go through. So I think we need to just put some arguments to rest and then hope that our votes for the next 6 years, what is that, 6 years till 2032 it is, will actually count. Because when you have one representative for cities, and farmers, how can you possibly meet the needs for both of them? This is going to backfire.
This obviously with the potential to flip the House towards Democrats in 2026. How are you feeling about that? Are you confident that Republicans can counter that?
I don't feel like this has to do with them. To be honest, Californians are forgetting about their own interests. We are California. We have always been in the forefront of civil rights, our rights. We needed to protect that, and we needed to be an example. Yeah, it has nothing to do with Trump. They don't care about us. I mean, Texas doesn't care about us. We don't really care about us. We needed to be caring about our neighbors and our own cities and being an example.
Well, thank you very much for joining me. Obviously, a number of local Republican leaders who are here tonight saying this will be an opportunity for them to regroup, reconsider strategy for 2026. For now, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Lori's saying she's in shock, but also throwing out a very important word, and that is unity. Zach Sauce live tonight in Los Gatos. Zach, thank you.
And we want to take a quick look at some of the results right now. And let's start with some redistricting here in California.
You can see the early results. 64% of Californians at this point in the evening voting yes on Proposition 50, 36% voting no.
We're also keeping an eye on the mayoral race in New York City, which has attracted national attention. That race has been called for Zohran Mamdani, 50% voting for him. Andrew Cuomo coming in at 42%, and Curtis Sliwa getting 7% of the vote. And the mayor-elect is in Brooklyn tonight. He is expected to speak soon, so we're keeping an eye on that event, and we'll bring that to you when he takes the podium.
All right, for some more insight into all that is at stake tonight in California, really across the country, we're joined by David McEwen, political science professor at Sonoma State University. We saw the live picture there from Brooklyn, and I'll start there. Your initial reaction to Mamdani winning the mayor's race, is this progressive movement, does it have legs moving forward for another year into the midterms, you think?
If you think about what binds together Donald Trump and the mayor-elect of New York City, it's about change and what change looks like. That's where voters are at. That's where their mood is. That's an important development headed to 2026. However, where they're coming at change is obviously completely different. So if you're the Republicans, you're going to want to paint the mayor-elect Bernie Sanders, AOC together as the new Democratic Party. That'll be the challenge for Gavin Newsom coming out of tonight and Prop 50's result to kind of thread that needle. But other Democrats as well. The normal midterm loss is in the mid-30s in a president's second midterm. So obviously the move for redistricting, that thing where everybody fell asleep in class discussing, that's going to be huge. And adding Republicans can go a little bit farther here. But if you look at what happened in Virginia, you look at what happened in New Jersey, the exhaustion factor that's going on with Donald Trump, you see that Democrats had a good night. Let's see how they can corral that into a message moving forward, because they've had that gut punch since November and haven't really been able to move forward. Can they do that out of tonight's results? It'll be very interesting to watch.
And does it come back to a lot of these candidates campaigned on economy, which people are frustrated, and
the affordability
and affordability. So they didn't. They tried to stay away from partisanship in some of their speeches. I mean, certainly it's a pushback against this administration, but it wasn't just that. And I think that's what the Democratic Party and certainly Democrats have said. What is the message? What is the message? And that might be the next year they're going to try to figure out before the midterms.
You two are great analysts about this, because it's not just about pushing back and having a good night. It's also about affordability. That's part of that change matrix and what that looks like. Voters obviously very concerned about their pocketbooks. Okay, that's an important element. But also add another aspect to this. It's about what you do with young voters, how you introduce new voters. And look, what happened in Virginia is historic. There are 74 men that preceded Abigail Spanberger before she became governor. That's a big deal, but it also talks about the power of the vote around different style candidates. The mayor-elect is a different style candidate in New York City. Spanberger's a different style candidate, but they're also more moderate Democrats in New Jersey and Virginia, a different style. So can Democrats have that big ticket, or is there going to be this litmus test while Trump and Republicans paint Democrats as crazy San Francisco liberals?
Different style, but here's where they're similar. When I look at the numbers from last year, Kamala Harris won Virginia by 5%, 6% in Jersey. these two women won double digits in that state just 1 year later.
So you have components of change, you have strong message on affordability, you have the dynamic. I mean, look, about 90% of politics, 95% of politics is about timing. Timing matters. They're in the right place, the right candidacies, given those local conditions.
Federal workers in Virginia?
Look, I mean, Fairfax County, I mean, you haven't received a paycheck in a month? That's kind of a compelling reason to go vote for change. And that's where timing does matter. And that's how the shutdown is almost done. But we're also headed to that Thanksgiving holiday season where air traffic is going to be a really big deal and a motivator that people won't forget when they go to the polls next year.
And President Trump hit on the economy when he ran, and that seemed to resonate with people. And now the economy is resonating with people, but maybe in the opposite way. And he posted on Truth Social tonight, he said the problem with this election is that he wasn't on the ballot. But he's not going to be on the ballot. And certainly the Republicans and the Democrats both have to figure out in this next election how they put themselves forward. I mean, I think this election was so interesting to watch because so many states were watching each other, so many other states in a new way and more intensely than they have before. So many people watching California and Proposition 50.
Right. There's the Proposition 50. There's Gavin Newsom being out front as against Donald Trump. But if you look at the candidates that ran as Republicans in the gubernatorial races in Virginia and in New Jersey, they classified themselves as MAGA Republicans. That is Donald Trump's Republican Party. He was on the ballot by not being on the ballot. It wasn't his name per se, but no one has changed the politics and the laws of round elections in America like he has in the last 10 years. But that proxy and that exhaustion is going on. And look, 2028 and the MAGA movement is wide open. The Democrats, it's wide open. This is the first salvo, not just in 2026, but about 2028 and what that looks like moving forward. Democrats have a messaging problem. Republicans may have a drag problem with fatigue related to Donald Trump, and people are looking for change.
Got it. David, appreciate it. Don't go far. We'll bring you back in a little bit here.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to take a quick break. You are watching special election coverage from KTVU on Fox Local.
All right, welcome back on this election night. It is not just Proposition 50 that could turn out to be a referendum against President Trump. Voters in Santa Clara County have also voted on Measure A. Right now, that measure is winning with 57% of the vote.
All right, let's go now to KTVU's Jesse Gary, who has been following this measure and the supporters and the issues around Measure A. Jesse?
Claudine and Mike, good evening to you. We're at the headquarters of SEIU Local 521, where they're having kind of a rally right now. This is one of several election watch parties that are happening throughout the South Bay tonight. We've got local, state, and federal politicians here. We're joined by Zoe Lofgren. Congresswoman, so far it's been a big night for Democrats.
Yes, it has.
Does that translate here in California?
Well, I just saw that they've announced that 50 has won. And, of course, here locally, Proposition A has also passed. People are standing up for themselves and not willing to accept what Trump is dealing with.
What does it mean for people here in the county?
Well, Measure A fills some of the gaps. The Medicaid cuts are devastating across the state, and it's predicted that hospitals would close. So county voters decided to do something to keep the hospitals open. Proposition 50 gives us a chance to take control of the House of Representatives away from the Republicans, who will not stand up to Trump and once more have checks and balances.
So this is more a referendum on Congress than local?
This is a referendum on what we think about what the Republicans are doing to our country. And we're going to stand up for ourselves and take back the House of Representatives and chart a different direction for the United States.
Congresswoman, I appreciate your time.
All right, you bet.
Good to see you.
You bet.
All right, we can go ahead and take a look at our video. You heard Congresswoman Lofgren talk about Measure A, which is a temporary 5/8 of 1% sales tax here in Santa Clara County. Proponents say this is needed to offset some of the destruction done by what destruction they call by H.R. 1. That's the Republican-led House bill that passed both the House and the Senate in Washington earlier this year. They say that bill will slash funding to Santa Clara County by about $1 billion. Now, even if Measure A passes, it won't offset the entire amount, but proponents say it will save services and jobs.
We need the tax money to keep all the services in Santa Clara County running.
I think Measure A will pass. I think we have done an extraordinarily good job over the last couple of months really telling the story of the vital role that the Santa Clara Valley healthcare system plays in our county. And if we are to contract or consolidate or close in any way, it impacts every resident.
The county can basically cut the fat. And they haven't really. There's a lot of bloat. When it comes to healthcare, we have bloated from $1.5 billion just about like 7-8 years back.
That's Rishi Kumar, the chairman of the No on Measure A campaign. He says the county is living beyond its means and needs to enact budget cuts, expenditures in order to remain solvent now and in the future. And the current numbers show that Measure A is leading. These are unofficial, but Measure A leading by about 57% to 42%. But of course, the night is young and the returns have not been certified. But it looks like Measure A on its way to passing. We're live in North San Jose this evening. Jesse Gary, KTVU, Fox 2 News. We'll head back to you up in Oakland.
Okay, and of course, we'll continue to monitor those numbers as they come in. Thank you, Jesse. And we have KTVU news crews covering every angle of Proposition 50 as well as Measure A in Santa Clara County with Jesse. And we're also following the implications of those other races across the country.
That's right. Polls here in California closed just about 30 minutes ago. Let's take a look at the results so far. We begin with the big one, the Congressional Redistricting Initiative right here in California. This is Proposition 50. As of right now, 65% of registered Californians have voted in favor of Prop 50, 35% voting no. We're also keeping a close eye on the mayoral race in New York City, which has attracted national attention.
And there are the results on your screen right now. The race has been called for Democratic Socialist Zoran Mandani. You can see on the screen getting 50% of the vote. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo fell behind with 42%. And Republican Curtis Sliwa took about 7% of the vote, with more than 2 million voters casting a ballot. The city's Board of Elections says this was the highest mayoral turnout in 56 years. The mayor-elect is in Brooklyn tonight. Mamdani speaking now. Let's listen in.
Fast and free. And deliver universal child care across our city. Years from now, may our only regret be that this day took so long to come. This new age will be one of relentless improvement. We will hire thousands more teachers. We will cut waste from a bloated bureaucracy. We will work tirelessly to make lights shine again in the hallways of NYCHA developments where they have long flickered. Safety and justice will go hand in hand as we work with police officers to reduce crime and create a department of community safety that tackles the mental health crisis and homelessness crises head on. Excellence will become the expectation across government, not the exception. In this new age we make for ourselves, we will refuse to allow those who traffic in division and hate to pit us against one another. In this moment of political darkness, New York will be the light. Here, we believe in standing up for those we love.
Zoran Mamdani, the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist, celebrating a big victory tonight right there in Brooklyn, as we were giving you a live picture at his speech that he's giving to his supporters. President Trump, by the way, just yesterday endorsing Andrew Cuomo in this race. Obviously, that did not give him the victory, as Mamdani gets the win with more than 50% of the vote so far tonight to Cuomo's 41%.
All right, let's bring in KTVU political reporter Greg Lee. Just one of the races that we're watching, and certainly people saying these are races that tell us a lot about the political climate across the United States. This race, Proposition 50 as well.
Yeah, a Democratic sweep overall the entire night. If you look at this night of elections, and definitely some momentum in favor of Democrats thus far. And after bruising losses in 2024, party looking for some wins and a clear message and messenger. California congressional Democrats all got behind Prop 50 in short order. And just moments ago, we heard from former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who spoke to a crowd of volunteers in San Francisco. Here's what she said about the victory.
Here's the thing, this is a tough time in our country because of what's happening in D.C. or not happening in D.C. But we don't agonize, we organize, we unionize. And that's what we did in this election. Thank you so much to Rudy for having the plan, and Gary for executing it, and Kim for just giving us our guidance on a daily basis. Because the governor did a great job. He was wonderful. It was great. But they were doing the big messaging and all of that. But if you don't own the ground, you're just having a conversation. Right. So he counted on us to do our thing. But what was beautiful about this, it was strategic. It was targeted. It was swing voters in swing districts, and it was in working families.
Nancy Pelosi knows how to organize. She knows how to raise money. She's been doing it for nearly 40 years. So tonight, thanking volunteers, that really the ground game for the Yes on 50 side was incredibly strong, which is leading to some of those early margins that we're seeing.
Yeah, and they called this race right at 8 o'clock and said Proposition 50 passed. So now they're still counting votes. Does the margin and how big it is matter?
I do think it matters. If it's in that 12 to 15% range, we know it was early on very large. We expect that to contract a little bit as more numbers come in. But if it's in that 10 to 15% range, it really speaks to where people are at in California. We're looking at those margins, too, across the nation in the Mamdani race in Virginia and New Jersey, because it says really that this was a repudiation of the Trump administration, which you would expect out of the first election in a second term.
Real quick sidebar, since we're talking about Nancy Pelosi, do we expect to hear from her, you think, in regards to whether or not she's going to run for her seat?
I mean, what we know about Nancy Pelosi is that she keeps things close to the vest, particularly about her future. I think she continues to revel in this Prop 50 victory for a little while, and then she sets a timeline moving forward and gives us an indication of what her plans might look like.
Got him. Greg, all right, thank you. Let's go back to KTVU's Amber Lee, live tonight in San Francisco at a Yes on Prop 50 party, who is standing by with someone, I believe, who wants to be the next congressperson representing the city of San Francisco. Amber?
Yes, hi everyone. We're in downtown San Francisco at the Yes on Prop 50 party. And here with me, as you said, California State Senator Scott Wiener. What's your reaction to AP calling it so early and the margin is pretty wide?
Yeah, this was a landslide for Prop 50 because Californians get it and they know that we're the largest state and we have to fight back against what the Republicans are doing to our country. Throwing people off of health care, doing these trade wars to explode inflation, having ICE come into cities and tearing families apart. People don't want it, and Californians don't want it. And what we've also seen is not just California. Democrats are winning in New Jersey and Virginia and Georgia, all across the country. People are saying enough. What Trump is doing is disgusting. It's tearing the country apart, and this is just the first step because we're going to get them out of office.
And Prop 50 could potentially flip 5 seats in this state, but there's work to be done, correct?
Yeah, so this all started because Trump called the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, and said, I want 5 seats in Congress. I want you to redistrict mid-decade and kick 5 Democrats out of Congress. And that's terrible. And we didn't want to have to respond, but we had to respond. California had a responsibility. So now that the voters have overwhelmingly passed Prop 50, we have a new congressional district map for next year, and we have the possibility of picking up 5 more Democratic seats in the midterms, and we're going to have to work very hard to make that happen. We can't take it for granted.
Is this more than just pushback against President Trump?
I think it is pushback against Trump, but it's also people saying we have real problems in our country, and instead of building ballrooms at the White House, we should be solving our problems to lower the cost of living, to make energy cheaper, to make housing cheaper, to just make people's lives better. That's what it's about.
What do you think was key to voter turnout when, for many places in California, it was a one-measure ballot?
People really understood what was happening. I'm always impressed by San Francisco and California voters. People really get it. And when you only have one thing on the ballot, it's very straightforward. People know what's going on. And I think people understood that Republicans tried to confuse people, but fundamentally people knew that this was about California punching back against Donald Trump, punching back against their mass deportation program and their effort to destroy health care. That's what Californians understood.
The Democratic Party and supporters poured a lot of money into this race.
This was an incredible team effort between the Democratic Party, Labor, so many community organizations, just people up and down the state working very hard to make sure that Prop 50 passed.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
There you have it. Prop 50 passed by a lot. We have nothing but smiles here. As, like I said earlier, every Democratic Party victory was being cheered by the folks here. This party, I can safely say, will last for a few more hours. Claudine, Mike.
All right. Yes, getting the news they wanted to hear. All right, Amber Lee reporting live. Thank you, Amber.
Well, let's check back in again with KTVU's Zach Sauce, who is live tonight in Los Gatos with a Prop 50 party with those who oppose the proposition. Zach, still going on tonight?
Yeah, expected to wrap up fairly shortly due to the result this evening. I think that the size of this party sort of speaks to expectations this evening. A number of local Republican leaders saying that they did not expect to be able to vote down Prop 50 this evening due to the early numbers that they saw, the early turnout numbers, early voting numbers from Republicans fairly small. And then, of course, they were watching the early results from the East Coast, most of those results going in favor of Democrats. So certainly a somber mood here, but not one that was unexpected. I spoke with Carol Peffley, a candidate for state assembly, earlier. Here's what she had to say.
I'm feeling sad and disappointed, but I'm glad we did what we did because we gave it our all. We had volunteers knocking on doors. We've handed out thousands of flyers trying to educate people about Prop 50, and we've done all that we can. We may have lost this battle, but we have not lost the war. In 2024, 10 counties flipped red in California. I think 2026, we're going to see a big change here. People are tired of not being able to afford to live here. They're tired of a lot of the policies they see happening here in California, and I think we're ready for a change. As Republicans only have about 17% representation for 40% of the people already. That will go down to about 7% with these new maps that the Democrats drew. But I think nationally, we're going to see a lot more redistricting. This is just beginning now, and I think that in the end, Republicans will end up winning on this and picking up more seats than the Democrats.
So again, as you heard there, local Republicans clearly not happy with the result tonight, but hoping to use this to spur some momentum for 2026. Back to you.
All right, Zach Sauce with the very latest out of Los Gatos. Zach, appreciate it. Thank you.
And we're going to take a quick break. You're watching special election coverage from KTVU on Fox Local.
All right, welcome back on this election night as we await more Prop 50 results here in California, which, by the way, at last check, was winning with more than 64% of the vote. We are watching other headlines emerging across the country.
In Virginia, the governor's race has been called for Democrat Abigail Spanberger. The three-term congresswoman and former CIA agent becomes the first female governor. You can see there with 57% of the vote. And in New Jersey, voters also elected a new governor. Democrat Mikey Sherrill has won the race, results showing 56% of the vote in her favor.
All right, Greg Lee, David McEwen back with us once again. You know, I look back at last year's presidential run. Kamala Harris winning California with 58% of the vote. I just mentioned Prop 50 at last checkup, more than 64% of the vote. Gavin Newsom's political investment, will it pay dividends here moving forward, you think, David?
He's a top 3 contender to be the nominee. It's hard to see that in terms of his California model for what he's done, but he's on the tip of the tongue for major Democrats. He does get a bump out of this. He delivered. He had to deliver in this state. It's the best situation for him, but there's a long way to go between now and the Iowa fair, between the early primaries that we're going to see.
And I think that's the question, right? Is how does he carry that momentum? How does he raise money like he did for 50?
Yeah.
Can he raise that money in the midterms for swing district Democrats? Can he be out there in those areas running money? Will they listen to a blue state governor out of California in
does he have
some
to
of those?
adjust with the Mamdani victory?
He does have to adjust.
Yeah.
Right?
He has to adjust because if Kamala Harris runs, I don't think she's going to run, but if she runs, raising money is going to be a problem. He's promised nurses socialized medicine and healthcare for years, and he hasn't delivered that. That's a key element for Bernie Sanders and for AOC. Healthcare is a key ingredient for Democrats for where they're at now.
Yeah.
How's he thread that needle? So what is his message, I think, is an important element here related to change. He is different than Kamala Harris, though, so that does help him.
I did hear him say when he asked about Mamdani, he said we should all be paying attention. And so at least he's acknowledging that there's something there that Democrats should be listening to in terms of how he's attracted this younger vote, how he's gotten this momentum, and the economy. And I would say what's interesting is if you look at all of these candidates across the board and these counties that are flipping red, blue, blue, red, it's issues that Republicans say, wait, that's our issue. Economy's our issue. And these candidates say, no, that's our issue. And it's about which party, it seems, that can convince voters that they're the ones who could solve those issues.
He did just get his next podcast guest. It's the mayor-elect of New York City. I mean, he totally just got that
Very
guest.
smart.
Right.
Very smart.
Well, and I wonder, can the Democrats big tent this, right? Can they big tent the progressive, the Democratic Socialist in Mamdani all the way to McSherrill, Spanberger, right? Is there room for everybody? Because Republicans are going to eat this up, right? I mean, they're going to go after Mamdani. It's going to become sort of red meat for them, and then they're going to try and tie Gavin Newsom to Mamdani.
So what do you think the mood is in the White House tonight?
I think they're probably pretty happy because they have the talking points about where things are going. And the president doesn't think this is a referendum on him. He thinks it was poor candidates, what was going on in peculiar states. And he wants to take on Gavin Newsom. Yeah. He wants to take on California liberals. And the person that resides over all of this is Nancy Pelosi, who can be helpful for navigating this. And we're unsure what's happening with her political career moving forward.
Does the shutdown give us any indication of messaging and how voters are taking the struggles of the economy in terms of who's to blame and how they're going to anticipate the hard times?
In two areas. Well, let's add the component that SNAP and people being unable to eat in the month of Thanksgiving is a problem for the party in power. Okay? There's that fundamental component. But if you look at what's happening with polling with voters of color, and who they're blaming, they're moving stronger and stronger into a place of blaming Republicans. And the reason that's a problem is because they made historic gains in 2024 with Hispanic voters, with African-American males, and you can't lose that jump that you had in 2024, and it's a fine game. And if they're younger, they're flipping a lot back and forth. So younger voters, that's also an avenue for Gavin Newsom.
We're getting some reaction, the first reaction from the president on his Truth Social here, and says Republicans terminate the filibuster, get back to passing legislation and voter reform. President DJT. And I wonder, again, speaking of the shutdown, if he's realizing that on issues of the economy, if that is what people are latching on to as they sort of, Dave, you and I talked about this sort of change, a change candidate, and seeing that in Mamdani and seeing some of the reverberations in California even.
And the election tonight is we're focused on California, New York City, Virginia, New Jersey, right? If this is a referendum on the current administration, do you want to see more data from Nevada and Arizona and Wisconsin? Like
Pennsylvania,
Pennsylvania,
those three judges,
right?
Supreme Court judges, were retained. You had a statewide public commission flip to a Democrat for the first time in a generation.
So you're starting to see
little bits
data
of it.
points
The
coming up.
difficulty is making too much out of these special elections, but it is the first, if you will, litmus test we have about where Trump is going and where the Republicans are going.
And what's happening next in this next year? We hear the yes on Prop 50 people saying this is just the beginning. You've got to get these candidates into office. You've got to campaign, and then everyone's going to strategy. You've got court cases coming up. You've got a lot coming up in this next year before we get to the midterms. The battles are beginning.
And I don't think we're done with 50.
And we're not done with 50. There'll be lawsuits announced tomorrow and the next day. You're going to then see it's going to be a heavy lift for redistricting through a ballot measure in Virginia. That'll be the first big test for Spanberger. She's not even in office yet. And in other states, Republicans have more places they can pick up here and there. But Democrats have a message they haven't had before. So maybe that helps push some of the shutdown and helps bring people together. But it's going to require presidential leadership. And I think the person who's most nervous tonight is Mike Johnson, because that is going to be very difficult in terms of herding cats in the House and what that looks like, because now Democrats made it much harder to deal in the House because they just won locally and across many states.
If these lawsuits, you know, if they fail and Prop 50 is a go, do we see less competitive congressional districts next year, like just a few dozen?
Well, I think in
country,
in the days to come, we're going to see candidates in some of those districts come out and say, "Oh, I'm running now because this district is friendlier to me." We'll see them in Orange County.
Everybody's kind of held back so far, but now it will be unleashed. And the key elements of this are in Northern California for what happens up here to deliver those other seats to offset the 5 if Democrats hope for that. There still has to be elections. So, and Republicans are not going to roll over on that. So they'll battle in the courts, state courts and in federal courts. And that Supreme Court term ends in June, which could carry into July, which is also known the hot summer of a midterm election. So there's a lot still out of this that comes forward. Keeps Gavin Newsom's name in the news, which is not a bad deal if you're interested in running for president.
A lot to watch. We're also watching the podium in Sacramento, where Governor Gavin Newsom is expected to speak. There is a picture of his microphone that is just waiting for the governor. We're going to take a quick break. You are watching special election coverage from KTVU on Fox Local.
Welcome back to our special election night coverage right here on KTVU Fox Local. We take you live now to Sacramento. Governor Newsom addressing the media about the big victory for Proposition 50.
Why else is he trying to rig the midterm elections before one single vote is even cast? He understands his position at this moment in the United States of America. One thing he never counted on, though, was the state of California. Instead of agonizing over the state of our nation, we organized in an unprecedented way in a 90-day sprint. People from all over the United States of America contributed their voices and their support for this initiative. We stood tall and we stood firm in response to Donald Trump's recklessness. And tonight, after poking the bear, this bear roared with an unprecedented turnout in a special election with an extraordinary result. None of us, however, are naive. This is a pattern. This is a practice. Donald Trump's efforts to rig the midterm election continue to this day, and I'll reinforce that in just a moment. You're seeing him take action all across this country, not just in Texas. You saw what they were successful able to do in Missouri, what they did in North Carolina, what they're trying to do in Indiana, and inevitably in Florida. They are not screwing around. In June of this year, we saw 4,000 National Guard federalized in the state of California. We saw 700 active duty Marines not sent overseas, but sent to the second largest city in the United States of America to militarize our streets. We said in June this was a preview of things to come. What more evidence do you need than what happened in Washington, D.C., what's happening up in Portland, cities like Chicago? When we kicked off this campaign just 90 or so days ago in Little Tokyo in Southern California and L.A. at the Democracy Center, Donald Trump sent Greg Bovino. He sent his private police force that increasingly appears to have taken an oath of office to Donald Trump, not to the Constitution of the United States. He sent them to our kickoff rally to chill free expression, to chill free speech, to intimidate people from participating. Just today, in Los Angeles, Donald Trump called up the Border Patrol, sent them to Dodger Stadium, threw a fastball at free speech, right at the head, free expression, to suppress the vote in America's second largest city. Just did that today. People in tactical gears sent out to intimidate a community that is already on edge. But you see, as we speak, people are still in line. People waiting up 3 hours to cast their vote, to send a message to Donald Trump. No crowns, no thrones, no kings. That's what this victory represents. It's a victory for the people of the state of California and the United States of America. And this is a victory that's punctuated with a sober reminder that it's not just the actions that Donald Trump has taken to federalize our guard, to begin the process of militarizing American cities, to intimidate free expression and speech by utilizing ICE and Border Patrol in America's cities. But he also announced today, right when polls were opening, that this election was rigged. That this election was rigged. Of course, those are familiar words. It's exactly what Donald Trump said after January 6th, that day of love, where he tried to light democracy on fire, he tried to wreck this country, and he called in to the Secretary of State in Georgia, calling up for 11,000, 12,000 votes, just like he called Greg Abbott, saying he's entitled to those 5 seats. He said this election was rigged, and he's moving to look for criminal prosecution and investigations at the Department of Justice. He is not screwing around.
So tonight, I'm proud, but I'm very mindful and sober of the moment we are living in. Donald Trump does not believe in fair and free elections. Period and full stop. This is not complicated, and it's self-evident to anyone paying attention. You start to stack up all of these actions that continue to this moment and will continue in moments to come. If you think I'm exaggerating, consider his announcement just a few weeks ago to send rapid response teams all across the United States, in all 50 states, tens of thousands of members of the military prepared for urban deployment. A preview of things to come. But back to this state. Our state of mind was resolute. Our state of mind was resolved to stand firm and to stand tall, to not be intimidated, to not be humiliated, to not fall prey to cynicism, to not fall prey to fear and the anxiety of someone that believes in only one thing, shock and awe, to intimidate and exhaust us. What we're seeing all across this country, 7 million people strong, standing up, not just for themselves, but for each other and for these enduring and historic principles of our founding fathers. And I'll end on that. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the best of Roman Republic, the best of Greek democracy. This fundamental notion of a system of checks and balances, a popular sovereignty, the rule of law. Mr. President, the rule of law, not the rule of dawn. And I hope it's dawning on people. The sobriety of this moment, what's at stake. Tonight, as I said, is an extraordinary moment for our party, but again, it's an extraordinary moment affirming those principles. Our founding fathers did not live and die to see the kind of vandalism to this republic and our democracy that Donald Trump is trying to perpetuate. And so my call tonight, in the spirit of Whitman, talked about the powerful play goes on. We all must contribute a verse. And so we need the state of Virginia. We need the state of Maryland. We need our friends in New York and Illinois and Colorado. We need to see other states, the remarkable leaders that have been doing remarkable things, meet this moment head on as well, to recognize what we're up against in 2026. And let me make this crystal clear. We can de facto end Donald Trump's presidency as we know it the minute Speaker Jeffries gets sworn in as Speaker of the House of Representatives. It is all on the line, a bright line in 2026. And so I want to thank everybody that stood up, not just for our democracy, but stood up for those that feel bullied and intimidated, stood up for this notion of co-equal branches of government and a system of checks and balances. And I want to thank my wife, who reminds me every single day that this is about those that feel alone, those that feel isolated, those that feel an anxiety and a stress that they never could have imagined in their lives. This was about saying to them, we have your back, we see you, you matter, we care. And I'll just say this, I'm confident as we move forward into 2026 in this country, the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
What's the lesson for other Democrats from tonight?
You've been listening live to Governor Newsom there in Sacramento, talking about the Proposition 50 victory tonight, winning at this point with 65% of the vote to 35% of registered Californians voting no against Prop 50. The governor there saying, quote, after poking the bear, this bear roared, saying that he's also proud but mindful of where we are tonight.
Yep. And thank you for joining us. Our election coverage continues next with an hour of Live Now from Fox, and we'll be back in an hour for the 10 and 11 o'clock news. And you can find more results as they come in at KTVU.com and the Fox local app.
system of checks and balances, of popular sovereignty, the rule of law. Mr. President, the rule of law, not the rule of dawn. And I hope it's dawning on people, the sobriety of this moment, what's at stake. Tonight, as I said, is an extraordinary moment for our party, but again, it's an extraordinary moment affirming those principles. Our founding fathers did not live and die to see the kind of vandalism to this republic and our democracy that Donald Trump is trying to perpetuate. And so my call tonight, in the spirit of Whitman, we talked about the powerful play goes on. We all must contribute a verse. And so we need the state of Virginia. We need the state of Maryland. We need our friends in New York, in Illinois, in Colorado. We need to see other states with their remarkable leaders that have been doing remarkable things meet this moment head on as well, to recognize what we're up against in 2026. And let me make this crystal clear. We can de facto end Donald Trump's presidency as we know it the minute Speaker Jeffries gets sworn in as Speaker of the House of Representatives. It is all on the line, a bright line in 2026. And so I want to thank everybody that stood up, not just for our democracy, but stood up for those that have feel bullied and intimidated, stood up for this notion of co-equal branches of government and a system of checks and balances. And I want to thank my wife, who reminds me every single day that this is about those that feel alone, those that feel isolated, those that feel an anxiety and a stress that they never could have imagined in their lives. This was about saying to them, we have your back, we see you,